In a world where voices are silenced, one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
So, g'day and welcome to another Bonafide podcast. I'm really looking forward to bringing you today's chats because I think there's something for everyone. Well, we try and do that every time, but I think you'll really enjoy today's. Listen, so please give us some feedback. Tell us what you think. And if there's somebody you'd like us to get on the podcast, we will do our best to get them. But it only works if you get involved. So once again, let us know what you think. Send us your thoughts, community@bonafidepod.com, or leave us a voicemail on 0291289311. And remember to follow, subscribe. It doesn't matter what app you listen to, Spotify, YouTube, it's all there, Kelsey. And it helps us find new audiences. So share and tell everyone, spread the word. And we'll see you at the Casino Truck Show this week. Thanks to GME. How are you going, millennial?
Tired.
Why?
I had a 30th on the weekend and I'm not built like I used to be.
No, we had a wedding. The beautiful Montana Ayub got married. I can't pronounce her new surname. It's a very long Polish name, Dobreski, I think. Andreas, who I've known for a while. I've known Montana for a long time. She's the daughter of Joe from Swiftgrow.
There you go.
My God, what a wedding. What a wedding. Massive. With smoke machines and live music and, oh, my God, the meal was sensational. And it was up at, what's it called?
Miramar.
I've driven past it for a million years, never been in there. You had your formal there. It's massive, isn't it? I've got to say, they did a magnificent job. The staff are great. It's a really good joint.
Yeah. It's like a castle.
It is. It's like, I said this to Joe, I said it's like Caesar's Palace without the pokies. It's massive. Anyway, I'll have more to say on that because you should see the video. They had videographers there filming from her getting ready to leaving the house and him getting ready and leaving the house and all of that. And they videoed the church service and the reception. And at the end of the reception, up on the big screen, came this they put it together. They turned it around and produced this amazing video in almost real time. We couldn't believe that we were watching on this video people coming into the reception and her dancing with a father, which only happened a few minutes earlier. It was unbelievable.
Technology.
Really professional people. I don't know who the production company was, but my God, they were good. Really good. You, as a videographer, editor, you would have been seriously impressed. I was thinking the whole time, God, Kelsey would be so impressed at how they put this together. I hate to think of the cost. Joe was still smiling. Hey, listen, we've got a fair bit coming up. We're going to talk to Tracy Tully, that amazing educator. We spoke to her earlier in the podcast, and she had so much more to say, Kelsey. And so Tracy Tully, ex-school principal, outspoken ex-school principal on so many more topics. I can't wait for you to hear it. It's coming up a little bit later in the podcast. And we are going to go motoring with James Ward, who has some interesting news in the motoring world and some strong opinions on AI surveillance cameras. That and Truckie Tuesday with Rod Hannifey, who'll be joining us at Casino, and Belinda Hughes from Hughes Law with her thoughts on how the law affects truckies. So it's an action-packed episode of Bonafide, and we hope you can strap in for its entirety. But quickly...
Strap in or strap on?
Beg your pardon? Strap on? Kelsey, this is a family show.
It's just a meme.
Did he say strap in or strap on?
News, something to think about, something to laugh about.
Let's have a look at some of the news that's making news in the world today. Speaking of education, The cost of private education in Sydney for a child born in 2026 could cost close to $500,000. I'm going to talk about this with Tracy Tully coming up a little bit later. Are you actually guaranteed a better education if you go to an expensive private school? The pros and cons of public versus private school education. You might be surprised to hear what Tracy Tully has to say about all of that. But government school education is expected to cost $122,283, a little bit less than Melbourne, $17,000 less. Catholic school education expected to cost $263,978 a year, about $30,000 less than Melbourne. The research has been completed by Resolve Strategic, who interviewed 2,500 parents October last year. Now, the news basically is this, Kelsey. When you give birth, you are struggling from the start. Even in a government education system, the costs can be astronomical. The real cost of educating our children, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Here's a question for you and Nathan. When you have children down the track, when you're ready, would you send them to a private school if you could afford it, if you could afford nearly $1 million a year, or would you go to a public school?
I think it depends on the kid. I went to public school my whole schooling career, and I got really lucky with my high school year 11 and 12 teachers where they really cared about us. You know, I went to school in the Northern Beaches, a very privileged area. So maybe that's why I had very good teachers. I don't know, but I've got nothing to say. I've got nothing but good things to say about the public schools that I went to.
Well, Tracy Tully will have more to say on this a little bit later on. And that's not our only topic of conversation with Tracy, but it's one of them, and it's an important one. You're talking about the resources available to you at an expensive private school, and you're 100%. The resources are amazing. But there is a school, if you'll pardon the pun, of thought that teachers at exclusive private schools are more accountable for the results they get than a public school. And it's a lot harder to sack a public school teacher than it is from a private school teacher signs a workplace agreement. Signs a workplace agreement. It's a contract like you would with an employer. And if you don't fulfill that contract, you're out. Now, the pay's better. There's a lot of extracurricular work you've got to do, however, which is part of your contract. But it's an interesting debate. It's a really interesting debate.
Well, I would agree with that because years 7 to 10, my geography teacher would get subways.
Yeah, no, you told us this story once.
He would leave and come back. And so he never got fired, and I could never understand why, because everyone complained about him. He was the worst geography teacher known to mankind. And he wasn't there to teach kids. He was there to get a paycheck, and it was very obvious. Unless my kid needs the extra help, or maybe they're just being a little brat and like they need more strict schooling, well then, yeah, sure, private school, fine. But otherwise, like, I think they get socialized better at public school.
It's funny because another topic we'll talk about is, are you better off going to a single-sex school or a co-educational school?
Nah, co-ed, surely.
Well, the life is co-ed. However, in your junior schooling years, girls mature much faster than boys, and boys are often seen as a distraction. And the figures show that girls do better at single-sex schools academically than the boys, but maybe not socially, because the world is, after all, co-ed. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it depends on the kid, right?
It does, but also, if you go to a very expensive, exclusive private school, there's a thing, Kelsey, called the old school tie. Do you know what that means? Okay. Your allegiance and your association with the alma mater, what's it called?
Oh, like the networking aspect of it.
100%.
When you go to one of those like prestigious boys' schools and you're going to school with like, I don't know.
James Packer.
Prime Minister.
James Packer, for example. Now, if you went to James Packer's school and you were best mates with James during school, what a great network to have when you're entering the corporate world. That's if that's the world you want to go into. And there's also another school of thought that if you come from an affluent family, a family that is where mum and dad are professionals, leaders in the corporate world, etc., maybe you've been brought up with a different sort of a work ethic. Maybe you're more inclined to be driven that way, And if you're surrounded by boys or girls who are similar, that's the path you might take, and chances are you might be more successful. You'll certainly make very, very influential and valuable contacts while you're at that school.
I agree with the contacts thing, but I don't think anything good comes out of spoon-feeding kids stuff. The most privileged kids that I went to school with were the ones that also struggled the most because they just expected everything to be handed to them.
You look at some of our great leaders, and a lot of our prime ministers came from very humble backgrounds. And I keep going back to Ben Chifley, who was a train driver. But I mean, if you look at politicians that came from a working class family that learnt to work hard, that appreciated the cost of living, you're probably more in touch with the electorate.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting debate. We'll have that coming up a little bit later on. Now, look, there's a big sporting debate going on at the moment, and this is not just a rugby league story. And let me explain. The West Tigers used to be Balmain. They're amalgamated with Western Suburbs. They're now called the West Tigers, and they have an extremely talented player as their coach now, Benji Marshall, and he's got a bit of a drama on his hands. Now, the West Tigers got absolutely flogged by the Canberra Raiders on the weekend after the club once again finds itself in enormous turmoil. This poor club, I don't know how they've survived. But here's the story. If you are a marquee leading player, a player that's put in a leadership role at a club, and your coach tells you that you're not going to be playing this weekend in your preferred position, you're in the team, and you, by the way, congratulations, you've just beat a suspension from the judiciary, so you're ready to go. But I'm not going to play you in your preferred position. I'm going to play you in another position. And that player says, nah, get stuffed. I don't want to play in that position. I'm not playing this weekend. What does the coach do? Now, let me just tell you what's happened. The West Tigers are in a bit of trouble. They've got two massive leadership players who, one is going to the new franchise in Papua New Guinea, and that's Jerome Luai, who's leaving the club at the end of this year, going to Parramatta for 1 year, then off to New Guinea. And that's caused disarray within the club because he's a leadership player. I think he's their best player. But now you have Adam Dewey. Now, Adam Dewey wants to play at number 7. That's the halfback, or possibly number 6, which is your 5/8, and they're playmaking positions. And if you think of halfbacks, you think of Andrew Johns, you think of Alan Langer, you think of Jeff Tuvey, you think of those sort of playmakers. Or if you want to think of a 5/8, you think of Wally Lewis, Brett Kenny, Cliffy Lyons, and it goes on. Bob Fulton. So,
I know who these people are.
So I'm just saying, because this is not just a rugby league story. What do you do as a professional sports person when you're told you're not going to be playing in your preferred position? How would Steph Curry go if he was told he's not playing point guard? He's going to be played at a forward. A bit different because a forward's a tall player, strong player. But what if you were told that you're going to be playing at lock forward, and not at halfback? Well, Adam Dewey has said he's so upset at that decision, he's not in the mental space to be able to play, didn't play on the weekend, and they got hammered by the Canberra Raiders. The Canberra Raiders were scoring tries for practice. It was embarrassing, and Benji Marshall has got a massive problem. Does he kiss and make up with Adam Dewey, who is a valued member of the West Tigers, or does he say, on your bike, there's the door. You're still in first grade. You're still getting paid by the club. You have all your teammates around you who you've let down on the weekend for going off with the sulks for not playing lock forward instead of halfback. Or does Benji Marshall now say, how can we sort this out? What happens in a sporting team, a professional sporting team, when someone spits the dummy? What do you do? Some people, and this has divided the community, because some people are saying that Adam Dewey is undervalued at the West Tigers, that he is being disrespected, and he deserves better. I think the problem is with his manager, who's a very controversial manager, and you can Google that for yourself. And I got a funny feeling that a lot of the problems in dressing rooms around the NRL are manager encouraged. The manager of Adam Dewey cannot stand Benji Marshall and probably thinks his marquee client deserves to be playing at halfback or at least deserves better respect from his coach. But as the coach, you're leading the team. You're steering the boat. And you're supposed to be in charge. So who is actually in charge of this NRL team? Is it a very talented, expensive, valuable tail wagging the dog? I'd like to get our listeners' thoughts on all of this, and we can equate it to other sports. Who gets the final say? Is it the coach? Is it the player? Is it the board? Is it the CEO? Or is it the manager? I'll give you an extreme example. If Michael Jordan didn't get on with Phil Jackson at the Chicago Bulls, I'm telling you this for nothing, Phil Jackson would have had to go. That's an extreme example of where the player was bigger than the coach, and it turned out to be a GOAT, a player that was bigger than the game. But I'd like to know what our listeners think. Let us know. Now, I don't know how many of you saw the Tracy Grimshaw 60 Minutes interview with Alan Joyce, the former CEO of Qantas. I was stupefied. I couldn't believe it. I think she gave him a fairly easy run. Yes, she asked him uncomfortable questions, but I don't think she pushed forward on a lot of them. As you all know, the former Qantas CEO, Alan Joyce, has now retired with a very, very lucrative payout package. Millions. And under his leadership, Qantas was 11 weeks away from going bankrupt. Now, there were other issues involved, COVID being number one, where the whole world's aeroplanes were shut down and many airlines did, in fact, go broke. But thanks to JobKeeper, Qantas, during 2 tumultuous years of COVID, made a $2 billion profit. Now, Alan Joyce has customers to worry about, but like many CEOs, he also has, what could be argued, a money-hungry, greedy set of shareholders who want a return. Who do you answer to, your customers or shareholders? Well, Alan Joyce, in my opinion, clearly went with the shareholders. He illegally, it was found in the High Court, Qantas, under Alan Joyce's decision, illegally sacked 1,800 workers. Those sackings were illegal. Alan Joyce and Qantas sold ghost flights to people who went online, used their credit card, paid for flights, Kelsey, that did not exist and didn't get refunds. The list goes on and on and on. Well, thanks to those decisions, let's take the sackings, for example. Oh, no, we'll go with the ghost flights as well. The ACCC found them guilty, $120 million fine, but saved them from bankruptcy. Qantas was accused by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission of selling these tickets, thousands of flights, Kelsey. They'd already been cancelled, but Qantas continued to sell seats on these flights. His successor was a woman called Vanessa Hudson, and during the interview he said he'll never have a bad word to say about him. She threw him under the bus, and she agreed to pay a $100 million fine from the ACCC along with the $20 million in customer compensation. And he said he didn't think that was the right decision, but he wasn't going to criticise her. Well, she had no choice. As the incoming CEO, she had to go by the umpire's decision, and the umpire, it was the ACCC and the High Court, and the person making those decisions was Alan Joyce, who is now a multi-millionaire.
But $120 million out of a $2 billion profit is nothing.
And it was JobKeeper that kept those jobs. My daughter was one of them. I'll give you another example. Harvey Norman received millions of dollars in JobKeeper, but went on to make massive profits because when people were shut down, what did they buy, Kelsey? They bought barbecues and they bought widescreen TVs and home entertainment equipment.
I wonder what Spotlight's profits were that year. They would have popped off. Spotlight?
100, but I'm saying they got taxpayer money to keep them afloat, and thank God JobKeeper was there for the thousands and thousands of Australians.
Of course, yeah.
But Jerry Harvey was reluctant in paying back the JobKeeper at first, and under a lot of media pressure, and I was one of them. I'm on record on Triple M. I said, Katie Page and Jerry, I don't know who your media advisor is, but can I give you some free advice? I won't even send you an invoice. Pay back the JobKeeper. You've got it because you've made a massive profit, and do it quickly so it looks altruistic.
Yeah.
If you do it when you're under pressure, that's exactly how it looks. If Jerry Harvey had paid back the JobKeeper that they received and still enjoyed a huge profit, everyone would have gone, what a good bloke. Fantastic. That was a great thing to do. You know what? I'm going to buy my next TV, my next lounge suite, my next bed. I'm going to buy it from Jerry Harvey. And he missed an enormous PR opportunity. Yes, he paid it back, but only under sufferance and after a period of time. I thought it was a bad PR decision. Anyway, look, it's an interesting interview with Tracy Grimshaw and Alan Joyce, but, you know, he's living a happy life now. The stress is gone. But what has he done to the legacy of one of Australia's most beloved brands? The spirit.
It's done nothing, Luke. It's done nothing. They're just going to keep getting away with this forever and ever until eternity.
And the slot blocking. Do you understand what that is?
Yes.
Okay, so you can Google it, folks, but it means each airline is allowed a certain amount of slots to land, embark, disembark, and go. Qantas would book them all, so other competing airlines couldn't get them and then cancel them at the last minute. They didn't allow foreign airlines to fly domestically within Australia. Say, for example, Etihad coming in, landing at Brisbane, and then going from Brisbane to Sydney with domestic passengers, Sydney to Melbourne with domestic passengers, Melbourne to Perth or to Adelaide with domestic, and then flying back overseas. And the government allowed that non-competitive behaviour to happen, Kelsey. And next thing you know, Anthony Albanese's son gets membership to the Captain's Lounge.
I know.
I haven't got a problem with private enterprise. I haven't got a problem with capitalism. But if you are profiting whilst the taxpayers are also propping you up, I've got a problem with it. If you're a self-made millionaire that's used initiative and risk and you've made something of yourself, I applaud that. Absolutely applaud it. Shall we move on?
Yeah, Luke, what would your funeral song be?
Now, I've seen that you've got this here on our list of things to talk about, and I'm a bit bewildered.
Why?
What would my song?
What's the song you want us to play at your funeral?
Well, you go first and let me have a think about it. You've sprung this on me.
Oh, well, I thought you would have a song, so I didn't think of mine. Oh, wait, Nathan has one. Let me ask.
Okay, I'll go Paul McCartney and Wings, Live and Let Die.
So, Nathan's song, his funeral song, is Hide in Your Shell by Supertramp.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of mine. You ready?
What's the song that represents your life? Give us the top number one.
Monty Python, Eric Idle, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I'll go for another one. Queen, Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. AC/DC, Highway to Hell.
Okay, that's enough now. Though I bring this up because
the Bee Gees, Staying Alive. Come on.
It's meant to be. Look, so an organisation called Dying to Know, they have launched a national Spotify playlist, and they're inviting Australians to share the song.
I wondered where this
they
was going.
want to play at their funeral, farewell, or celebration of life, and start a conversation about end of life wishes. So there you go. I don't know what my song would be.
Well, you got to think about it. You got to think about these things before you start recording, Kelsey. Why don't we ask our listeners, what song is going to be played at your funeral? Have you thought about it? Let us know, and we'll come up with a prize.
I guess I haven't thought about it because I'm like, I'll be dead. I'll let the people decide.
No,
what
but
my
you think
song
about
should
it
be.
now.
Maybe my song should.
Let's ask Bill Edgar.
Ding dong, the witch is dead.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens. I won't be around
it'll be
for
some
yours.
type of Taylor Swift song, no doubt.
Oh, Christ.
Rodney had this to say, Luke. G'day, Luke and team. I have a pretty serious request based on the discussion with Ben Downey on the latest episode. Please do not give Albanese any ideas to waste more taxpayer money on a referendum that will end up letting him screw the country for another year. Even just mentioning that the government terms could be increased is enough to give them the idea. And whether it passed or not, we already know that this government has a problem wasting taxpayer money on anything and everything they can. On another note, I will be attending Casino Truck Show on Friday and looking forward to seeing you there. I'll see you there, Rod.
What's the referendum he's referring to?
To increase the term of
Of terms of parliament. Okay. Yeah. Here in Australia, we have 3 years, And the argument is that it should be more because what I said to Ben Downey was the first year you spend blaming the previous government for their mistakes. The second year, you still blame them, but you're trying to fix things. And then your third year, you're in election mode and not really making any great decisions, just trying to get yourself over the line at the next election. And so, yeah, they have 5-year terms in the UK. Should we go to at least 4? That was what happened.
Yeah, well, Trump over the weekend at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he kind of made a joking remark that got the internet in an uproar. He said that his intention was to run for a 4th term. Now, half the internet said, you dumbass, you've already been in for 2 terms, so it would be a 3rd term, not a 4th term. But Trump was also alluding to the fact that he thinks the 2020 election was rigged and that technically he did win. He has won 3 times and so
Trump has been saying this for a long time that he thinks he can challenge the Constitution and run for as many as he wants. You're right. You can run constitutionally. The United States president can run twice, and it doesn't have to be consecutively. So you can win and then lose and then maybe win another one, but it's only 2. He wants to challenge the Constitution so that he can just stay there. The first election, he blamed the Russians on conspiracy. Now he's blaming the Chinese.
Who knows? Okay, we've got a voicemail here.
Hello, Luke, Kelsey, and Thomas. All again. I've heard that Jacinta Allen, the stupid who's minister over everything, like the Commonwealth Games, the big build, when everything went to shit and wasted all that money.
It was Dan Andrews who did that.
She's tipped to be dumped as Premier as early as Tuesday, 28th of July.
Yeah.
Ben Carroll to be installed as the new Premier. And I don't care who is the leader of that shambles shitbag party. I wouldn't freaking vote for him. And anyone that does vote for him this time seriously needs their head read.
Yeah.
Because you must...
Okay.
Wait, I want to hear what he has to say. Wait.
Because you must be a first-class quit. I want more of that. All right. Have a nice eat.
That's a quality voicemail. Love that.
Oh, my God. We'll find out later today if she is still going to be the Premier of Victoria. Yeah, they'll go with the polls, and if there's a leadership challenge, she probably will be dumped. But it's like rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. If you look at the latest polls, Kelsey, believe it or not, the coalition would probably win the next Victorian election. But you know who's close to number 2, possibly number 1? One Nation. They're going to have to get some candidates and some seats in Victoria very, very soon. One Nation. The polls might say.
Just imagine if One Nation was a premier.
Well, who would it be? See, people say, "Oh, One Nation." They haven't even got any candidates.
Yeah. We got a voicemail here.
Hello. Given the current political climate, I actually worked for 2 prime ministers at the Lodge, and needless to say, there's a lot of things that people would be interested in knowing, and also with the way the staff were treated, and all of the extra little perks.
Oh, a whistleblower from inside. That would be fantastic. Can we get Mary?
Yeah.
We may have to change her name.
Yeah, maybe. This is Mary.
Mary. I want Mary on the podcast as soon as we possibly can, Kelsey. Great stuff. Thank you so much.
Okay. One final voicemail here.
Hey, Luke, when do you get the Steen here? When do you get the real estate junk mail? Collect it all up, go back into their office with the mail and all your other junk mail and pour it out all over their floor and hand them the letter and tell them to stick it up their ass and don't send anyone round to your house unless they're willing to give you $100 million. And Kelsey, on the woman with Ozempic in prison.
Oh, yeah.
She shouldn't be allowed to have it. She should suffer like the families have to suffer. It's her own health condition that she's caused.
Yeah.
She should suffer like the families of the victim that she murdered. Anyway, have a good one. See ya.
Well, you know, if it was to treat type 2 diabetes, I'd be all for her being able to get it, like any other prisoner would be able to get life-saving medical treatment. but according to the insiders, she is obese through her own doing. And but her being approved originally to get IVF treatment so she could raise a child in jail for 5 years.
I know.
Oh,
No.
crikey. So we're off to the Casino Truck Show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see you there. Come up and say good day. We're doing a live podcast, are we? What's the story?
That's the story.
When? How? Where?
On the Saturday, 1:30 p.m.
And does everyone know? Are we taking calls or are we just gibbering?
Nah, just come, join in. We'll ask the audience questions, but otherwise it'll just be you and Rod and maybe a couple other people. Oh, Fergo can join in. Talking about trucking. We're just doing Truckie Tuesday live.
I can't wait. See you at Casino. Coming up, outspoken educator Tracy Tully, part 2.
Stories and laughter that brighten my day. Got the bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the Luke on a blues.
Well, for those of you who follow the Bonafide podcast, and thank you to both of you, you might remember on a previous podcast I spoke to this amazing educator, Tracy Tully, who has been educating since 1981. And she's passionate and she's outspoken and she has enormous passion for education. And she can see that reform is needed in certain areas and really important reform. And we're going to talk about that today because this affects all of us. It affects probably a way we reflect on how we were educated, how we possibly weren't educated, and what the future for our kids is and what maybe should be. Controversially, Tracy, in our last podcast, we were talking about the violence that's going on in schools, the rage seething within a lot of students, stabbings, assault, both verbal and physical. Tracy said she believes that all Australian schools should have metal detectors, and she explained why. So please go back to a previous podcast and have a listen to Tracy Tully. But I said during that podcast I needed to get her back for part 2 because there's a lot more to talk about with this amazing woman when she joins me again. Hello there. I've got to ask you, did you enjoy our last chat?
I most certainly did. And it was interesting because it set off like sparks a number of conversations with a huge range of different people. So I was able to ask them all these questions and hear what they're saying. I hear from a lot of teachers and educators, but to hear from other people out there, like specifically parents, other educators who aren't necessarily teachers, disability adults, young disability adults who are in training programs, etc. It was wonderful. It really was wonderful to have all those conversations, Luke.
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about today, and they're really important. I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of expensive private schools versus state schools, taxpayer-funded schools. I wanted to talk about maybe parts of the curriculum that we're not teaching and parts of the curriculum that we're teaching that are unnecessary. I can't remember the last time I used algebra or a logarithm, and yet we had to learn it. It's something that really sticks out with me, Tracy, and we'll do this one first, the curriculum. Life skills. Yes, we need to be educated. It's great to read, write and do arithmetic. The 3 R's are important. But there are other subjects that I think we all needed to learn and we need to learn in order to embrace life more comfortably. Now, I've got a list of things here, but I'll go for number 1 because I'd like to know what you think. When I was at school, doing commerce was an elective. But I think financial literacy and learning how to deal with money and how to deal with debt and the best ways to avoid debt is so important because getting credit is really dangerously easy. And credit cards, this mindset, it's free money. And next thing you know, you're in trouble and filing for bankruptcy, which can affect you forever. And not really understanding income to debt ratios and, in this day and age, living beyond your means. Now, I know it's a lengthy introduction, but I just wanted to tell you where I'm going with this. You and I grew up with parents who lived within their means. The only debt my parents were ever in was to borrow money for the block of land that they built on. They lived and died by lay-by. That I remember when the bank card came out, and I think it was Gough Whitlam. This little green card came in the mail. It gave every Australian, without a credit check, $2,000 worth of credit. And people thought, this is amazing. This is amazing. And my parents had secondhand, their house was full of secondhand stuff. And they bought a dishwasher, or they bought a lounge, or when colour TV came out, they bought a colour TV when they had the money.
Yeah.
Or they went through lay-by, where they purchased it, but you didn't take it home. You had to pay a little bit off every week or every month until you owned it. Now, I look at my kids, and my son, who is renting, earns good coin, but hasn't got anything in savings, lives hand to mouth and a little bit beyond sometimes, but has widescreen TVs, 3 of them, loves overseas trips, loves smashed Dubbo on toast for brunch. My daughter, who doesn't drink now, but you know, they love going out with the girls and having $18 Cosmopolitans like they do on Sex and the City. Should financial literacy not be an elective, but should it be a part of the curriculum for every child? Can we start with that?
Absolutely. And it's very, very simple answer, that one. Absolutely compulsory, I believe, in lower primary upwards. Now, if we were to listen to the Barefoot Investor, for example, he explains how to teach children to use their money boxes to save and to have something to spend, etc. Absolutely brilliant, simple, absolutely phenomenal structure there. Very simple to teach children how to save from that young age. So that financial literacy, I believe, should be absolutely compulsory and right down as low as you can go. I mean, we have in prep, we have kids with fake money in the tills, etc., in the little shops with all the plastic fruit. That's where it starts, and that's where we're not taking it to the next level. Once they leave kindergarten and prep and go into the classrooms, there's not that emphasis. It's all photocopied pages, etc., and reams and reams and reams of chalk and talk. So, yes, you've hit the nail on the head there. Financial literacy and English literacy are the most important subjects a child can learn when they start their education, and they should be moving up in increments according to their age and their experiences, etc., as they go right up to the bitter end, right up to the last year of school.
I know you were a high school principal on many occasions at many schools, and you're talking about senior students. You may hate me for saying this, but I think the most important tier and foundation of education is primary school. Because if you enjoy primary school and you enjoy learning and learn to absorb information at that age, it sets that foundation for the rest of your schooling. But that's only my opinion.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm actually primary trained, and then I moved up into high school later. So I'm with you. The foundational learning must happen, and it's not, because the emphasis of the people in education are all high school inclined or trained. So it's always their view, and that if you deliver a child to high school and they can't read and write, it's your problem, they're failing high school.
Yeah.
So I agree that within the primary school, the biggest issue is that we must teach kids comprehension, and we must teach kids those practical skills. So if they're counting, count fruit. If they're having a conversation, then they're having a communication back and forward. We're not teaching them communication. That would be my biggest bugbear. Mm-hmm. We are not teaching our kids how to communicate effectively, and the curriculum has a lot to answer for that. So to answer your question, yes, kids should be including, and I always did in all my schools, food. Even on School of the Air, would you believe it? We made Christmas puddings on our two-way radio classes. We made Christmas puddings, and the parents said it was hilarious at the other end because there's flour and food everywhere. But the kids had fun. So nothing can exclude you from doing it. It's just changing that mindset of how you deliver education. And we have to do that, as you said, to make it real life. And if we don't, our kids suffer because most parents are working now and they don't have the time to teach the kids. So they do need to learn those skills at school.
And when I was growing up, we lived next door to a German family. My grandfather was horrified because he fought at Villers-Bretano in World War One. Growing up in a bilingual family and being bilingual is absolutely fantastic. But do you think English should be our first language?
Ah, yes, we're in Australia, so obviously English does need to be our first language. We do need to teach kids, I believe, and I know my children did and excelled at it. It was interesting watching it. Teach them other languages when they're very, very young.
Oh, yeah.
And they pick it up no matter what countries my kids go to. They pick it up. They just pick up the different, and they can actually shop and everything. And that really makes me proud, but it makes me happy for them because I go to Italy and I have to sit there and watch lip read and all sorts of things to try and work it out. But it's always everything. It's like music. You teach a child music when they're young, they excel at maths. Yeah. As you said, there's a lot of math in music, and they've got a good ear and they learn to appreciate the rhythm and the tone. They can use that for their voice. They can use that for their breathing. Absolute gold.
Yeah. And reading, is it a lost art? And there's a reason for this, and you might enjoy this. I haven't given you a heads up on this one yet because I wanted to see your reaction on your face. We had to read. There was no talking books back in the day. If you had to do an assignment on a book, you read it. There weren't many movies about the book that you could cheat with. But reading, I so enjoyed reading, and reading can open up so much of your life. I wanted to ask you this. When you and I went to school, because we're about the same era, we had to write. And you remember it had to be cursive writing, and we had those black lines that you could see under the page to get the angle right. But we had to write, and you would test it on your handwriting. Mine's terrible, but only a chemist can understand my writing. But we had to write. And I had a caller on the air a few years ago who said, why do we need to learn to write at school anymore? Everything's on a keyboard. You do everything on a keyboard. You do everything on a keyboard. The only time you need to pick up a pen is to sign your name. Why do they teach handwriting in school anymore? It should go out the window. Your thoughts?
I disagree. Every child should learn handwriting for a couple of reasons. Because when you handwrite, you are comprehending and thinking forward to what you're doing. So when you type on a keyboard, you're not. You're just typing away. Yes, you can have that little bit of thought, but when you write, it gives you pause. And this is what we need to teach kids, the ability to pause at every different situation in their life, especially when they're angry, they're concerned, they're anxious, they're not sure. Pausing gives them time to breathe and reassess. So yes, that's where writing is really good. And it gives them the opportunity to use their brain and to watch what's happening moving forward, just like reading. Reading and writing go together for a reason. So when you teach a child to read, you're always teaching them to move 3 or 4 words ahead so that you're working out the context of what you're saying, and then you can work out what words could be.
It's funny you should say pause, because I was watching a TED talk from a prominent child psychologist a little while ago who was talking about road rage and short temper. And we were talking in the last podcast about rage at school.
Yes.
And he was saying, in his opinion, today's generation and kids today are not allowed to get bored. And he was saying boredom is good for you. If you are gratified instantly by something on a tablet, on a screen, even in everything in life, you need the answer to a question, you can just ask Google. In fact, you don't even have to type anymore. You can speak into it. And everything is instant. When a child is bored, then their imagination can take over and they learn to expand. We've done a massive disservice to younger Australians by not allowing them to get bored.
Exactly.
And do you agree with that philosophy?
Oh, most definitely, 100%. And the reason being is because when you're bored, you have the ability to take initiative and responsibility for your time in that space. You can either sit there and do nothing and be lazy, or just chill out and relax, or you can look around and think, what can I do to better myself? What can I do to make my next meal more exciting? I'll go and do some research. The pause or that boredom state is highly, highly contagious and very good for mental health.
Yeah, learning to pause and learning to deal with boredom and not have everything instantly there.
Yeah.
Whether I look, probably guilty of it. You know, my kids had a TV in front of them. They watched The Wiggles. You know, they had before DVDs, videos of Toy Story and all their favourite Disney things. You know, oh God, the kids are driving me mad. Well, let's let the telly babysit them for a while. So I'm guilty. That didn't happen when I was growing up. It was get outside and play, and go build a fort, go and play cricket, go fishing. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's not the kids' fault. Maybe parents are getting lazy. Maybe we're just too busy. Maybe we've got parents who are flat out paying rent or a mortgage and they've got 3 jobs. Kids are coming home to empty houses with their own key. And the first thing you'll do is go onto your laptop, go on the internet or turn the telly on.
Yes, and it's a safety measure as well as it's done for you. You know, it's like shopping at Costco. Everything's done for you wherever you go. It's like going to fast food. It's done for you. So it's the done for you mentality, which is dangerous. Parents haven't got the time, and so they rely heavily on tech.
The latest craze on dating apps is, and you want to know what they call it?
Yes.
They in order to impress your date, they reckon you've got to prove that you read, but read quality literature. And so even if you haven't read it, they reckon take a book on your first date and put it on the table at the coffee lounge or the hotel or wherever, because it makes you look sophisticated and well-read. And you know what they call it? You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
They say you've got to book up to hook up.
Oh, I love it.
I just learned that today.
That's excellent. That's classic. Imagine if you were able to sell that to all the high school kids, you know, book up to hook up. That'd be a really powerful, trendy slogan. I love it.
No, but the downfall is you don't have to have read it.
Oh,
you can read an abbreviated version or watch the movie, but it's important to have the book on the coffee table on your first date. No, it's there. It's there for the wrong reason.
Yes.
You know, if you had an audio book on a CD, not the same thing. No, it's got to be the hardcover book. You've got to book up to hook up. Oh, God.
Oh, that's amazing. I love books, absolutely love them. I cherish all my books. I'm an author, and so I'm currently writing a children's book right now in the Dr. Seuss tempo.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm also taking it one step further and writing it for dyslexic kids, because they struggle. There's not a lot of material around for them to learn to read. And there's a lot of dyslexic kids out there that we don't know. A lot of adults our age that we just don't know the struggle that they would have had. Going through school and employment would have been phenomenal. I love books. I love the feel of them, the smell of them, and you can't beat a book. We need to make sure that we teach reading really well and get kids to read. I never forget my daughter struggled a bit with reading, but my son used to we all would sit in bed every night and read a book, and we'd have the wizard, the young wizard, what's his name? Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yeah.
And that it was interesting watching the book go around between the two kids while they tried to work out how to pronounce a word, what it meant, how it fit in the sentence. And it was priceless, absolutely priceless. Thanks to Harry Potter, my daughter learned to read, and she flew from there, absolutely flew from there. And she wasn't doing that well at school reading, but she did with Harry Potter. So book up to hook up. That's funny.
I thought you'd enjoy. I just learned that today, so I'm behind it too. But yeah, you got to book up to hook up, folks. And we're lucky because my dad loved reading, and he read to me at night. And I like you grew up with Dr. Seuss, but Enid Blyton. And yes. Kenneth Graham, The Wind in the Willows, and A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. But he loved Banjo Patterson. And I remember, it was primary school. And from memory, it's Act 1, Scene 3 from Hamlet, where Polonius is talking to his son Laertes, who's about to go off into the world. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for a loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, for thou canst not then be false to any man. How do I remember that?
Rote learning.
Dad obviously made reading fun, but explained it well. I was lucky, wasn't I?
Very, very lucky. I know we travelled around a lot, so did our education just about every state in Australia, and for a while there, a couple of schools we went to in a row in each state did Macbeth, and so my sister and I would sit there.
Bubble, toil and trouble.
Absolutely. When shall we three meet again?
Oh, I see you. Yes, I can see you. Oh, you were straight. You were straight from Central Casting when you did that.
Oh, I loved it, and we still do it, and our kids can actually say it. It's like Monty Python. They're the same thing. Our kids, because they heard us talking, they would rattle off reams of Monty Python.
What's your favourite Python scene?
Oh, out damn Oh, no, that's
Macbeth.
Sorry.
You've gone back to Macbeth. You've gone back to Dunsinane.
Yes, come back, fight me. The Legless guy with the sword. Come back.
Yeah.
Fight.
We have a massive tradies shortage in Australia. You cannot find a plumber, a sparky, a chippy, a builder, and those that are in business are struggling to find apprentices. And it's adding to our housing problem because it's very hard to find people that can actually build houses anymore. Are we encouraging our kids too much, do you reckon, to go to university? And do you think there are some kids that who aren't academic in that way? It doesn't mean they're dumb. They're some of the smartest people I know that can work with their hands. But do you think maybe today parents are guilty of really wanting their kids to get a university degree when they should be looking at something else? What are your thoughts?
Yes, they are, and not for any fault of their own, because they've been conditioned, just like we were, over decades and decades and decades, because in the education, the Australian education structure, a university degree is the gold standard education pass. That was pushed and still is pushed. And any school will, when they talk about voc ed or vet, I love voc ed. I just love it, and I love teaching it. Vocational education and training.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We have this second-rate value or perception that skills and training isn't as good as academic training and learning. And this is our problem, a huge problem. When you look at around every state how they work out the seniors' results and everything, you have, your normal subjects, the academic subjects, and then you'll have the applied subjects like hospitality, agriculture, and then you'll have your voc ed or vocational education certificates 1, 2, 3, etc. Now, for me, I believe, once again, that we are not teaching our kids in primary school to use their hands to make things and use their math and science and English and literacy, all of that in one. So simple, but it's not done. Once again, we churn lessons out with photocopied sheets or books, and they sit there. They should be using their hands. They should be learning to use their hands when they're younger to problem solve. And showing initiative are really big for me as an educator. So that's, once again, what we should be doing. You see the schools with an ag plot with the chooks or, a cart the kids go down and feed. They are humming, those schools at lunchtime. They really do hum because the kids have got something real and physical to look at and do. Same with learning to build something. In my shack I'm living in now, I've got stuff that my kids have built over the years, and I still use them. In fact, my laptop is sitting on a stool, my son made me, in grade 7. So that's a big thing. So yes, the emphasis has been on universities for a reason. Let's face it, universities are powerful and they're extremely wealthy. So that when they talk, those chancellors, they hold big positions. When they talk, everyone listens, especially politically. When I wanted to bid, in these schools, I did remote education. So for me to bid for a child to get into pharmacy from my little school, 12 hours west of Brisbane, was difficult. So what I would do is I would bypass everyone and what everyone used to do, and I'd ring up the chancellor and say, when are you having a principal's lunch? And they go, why is that, Tracy? I said, I think you should have a principal's lunch in Toowoomba. I'll come, and I'd like to bid you my best top kids for your subjects. I'd like to do a deal, negotiate a deal with you. Oh, and when I arrive at those lunches every year or every semester, the chair next to the chancellor had my name on it, and I would start negotiating the minute I sat down. So what subjects can you offer me? What subjects can you offer me in grade 11? So when my kids finish in grade 12, you guarantee, and they've passed, you guarantee them immediate entrance. Oh, this is going back a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that, Tracy. That's a good, let's do it. And I'd skip away and I'd go back to school and say, kids, blah, 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 blah. I know you want to do this. Come over here. You want to do journalism? I had all these kids doing journalism. You want to do pharmacy? Come on. We're going to make it happen. So I get goosebumps from that. And that's the way we should be looking at education, looking at the kids' needs. Kids who love using their hands, we can identify them in primary school. We can identify them in year 8. We don't have to wait to a year 11. That's a load of rubbish. And I'd use really strong words, but it's a load of rubbish. I used to always tell my kids in grade 9, we will sit down and we'll look at your career path. Term 1, grade 9. We're not going to wait to the end of term 4 in grade 10. That's ridiculous. Absolutely. So when you're looking at offering kids the education that actually speaks to their needs, you'll have less behaviour problems.
And talking about behaviour problems, you mentioned dyslexia a second ago, and I took a note because I wanted to come back to it.
Yeah.
If you have a student that has a learning difficulty, but they're not dumb, but they think they are, and maybe they've been told by too many people that they're dumb, and if they can't read and comprehend, and they're feeling dumb, they're bored, and they'll play up.
Correct.
And that snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. But if you can diagnose that difficulty, own it, treat it, and I mean that, treat it, you'd change their lives forever, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Once again, totally agree with you. And I'm anti, all capital letters, inclusion that happens in Queensland. So inclusion is where you've got everyone in the mix in every classroom. You've got all the behaviour management kids that should not be in that environment. You've got disability kids that cannot handle the overload of the noise and the overwhelm and the anxiety. And no, the department says, you will do this, you'll do inclusion because it's our thing. It's a political. It just ticks boxes. But what it does is it sacrifices learning for the majority of kids because we're not actually looking at the needs of these kids who are struggling because they've all been labelled in the past. This is the problem. And so if we look at the trades stream pathway, we can do an academic and trades, actually. So if we look at different pathways for kids, we'd find that those kids would naturally progress into other areas. Like, some of those disability kids, they love tech, absolutely love tech. But they'll have specific needs with the earphones and noise cancelling earphones and all sorts of things. They need to be in smaller environments, smaller classrooms. Same with the behaviour kids. So what we're doing is we're piling on to teachers, absolutely piling on this ridiculous decree that you must educate everybody. You'll hold a wand and you'll do it all. And that's why private schools win, actually. You'll do it all because we said so, but you cannot physically do it. You just can't.
It's funny because I'll give you an analogy and I'd be interested to hear your response to this. If we have classrooms full of kids with special needs and we don't expect them all to learn like the robots that the teachers over many years have been taught to teach to, I put it to a very famous sports commentator, and I won't mention his name, but I'll tell you when we stop recording because it's interesting to know who this came from. I said, why is Australia always so good in the world rankings at swimming? So there must have been, the Olympic Games must have been coming up and the tryouts were coming up. And one of our top swimmers didn't make the time at the Australian Championships to make the Olympic team, and yet this person was very famous. and should have been representing Australia at the next Olympics, but missed out because on the day of selection at the Australian National Championships didn't perform. He said, that's why we're so good. That person had the flu that day and was not on track, and they missed out. No second chance because of their reputation. And he said, because we take no prisoners when it comes to swimming and for national selection, no matter how they feel on the day, they all know they've got to perform. They don't pander to their individual problems and I had the flu, my leg was sore. You don't cut the qualifying time at the national championships, you miss out on Olympic selection. No exceptions. Interesting philosophy.
Absolutely, and I love it. I really do. I used to say to my kids all the time, at assemblies, I'm interested in your PB, your personal best. Everyone knows what their PB is, and I would be talking about it all the time. I'm interested in your PB. How are you challenging your own personal best at anything you do? And they get that psychology where they learn the discipline then, and they learn to only compete against themselves first to make sure they're doing A, B, and C before they can get into the teamwork and they can excel in the sports in particular. The PB, personal best, and that's all over sporting.
Okay, but how do you feel about this new philosophy where everyone who participates gets a ribbon?
Oh, no. Right.
What do you had great attendance or you had a great effort. Everybody gets a reward. I had a lady send it in to me. It was an invitation to a birthday party. And unless every child in that class was invited, the teacher said no one goes or everyone goes because they'll feel excluded, the ones who aren't invited.
Yeah.
And there was going to be no musical chairs because there was going to be a loser.
Oh.
And the parcel, the instructions were there had to be a prize under every layer of wrapping, not just the one prize at the middle. Everyone who unwrapped a layer got a prize so they didn't feel excluded. How do you feel about this philosophy?
I don't believe in it. We must learn to lose. We must learn to lose. Losing is across every aspect in our life. And why whoever's idea it was to treat children like that, and especially in schools, and to teach them to I suppose, pander to them and their tantrums, etc., or the parents' guilt because you lose a running race, you lose a running race. There's only one person that comes through first. That's it. There's only one. I mean, you might have nose to nose in a horse race, but still they have the camera to tell you who's a whisker over. So we have to teach our kids to lose. It's very important. It's
funny. I guess it depends on the person because Kelsey is sick of me telling this story, but it's 100% true. When I was in first or second form, God, I've got to stop saying that because you know what I mean. We're playing basketball against Balgala Boys High. We got beaten 104-4. And the only two baskets we scored, I scored because I was cherry picking and I was being lazy on defense. But we got beat 104-4. Everyone had their heads down. Some people may have said, I'm giving this away. But this is just me. I said, that's never going to happen to me again. I'm going to train harder.
Exactly.
But that's just me. Here's another one. People often ask, why is there such a huge gap between the top level of international soccer when the United States has millions of participants, and yet on the world stage, they don't perform, and the European countries do. And it was explained that whilst there's a huge attendance to play soccer in America, the kids all have fun, and everyone gets a fair go. And if the coach doesn't put someone on, they're pressured by the parents, you didn't give my son or my daughter a fair go. And so that level of fun and fairness is the basis for the game. In European countries, you're either shit hot or you don't play, and the money will come, but it's only for the elite. And if you want to be a national hero, and if you want to play at this elite European standard, only the very creamiest of the cream get that. In America, it's a fair go for everyone. Whilst it's a good thing, it gets kids moving and running, and it's increased the sale of SUVs for mums. but on a junior And collegiate level, massive participation, but at this level, underperforming considering the huge base of juniors that they have playing. That was how it was explained to me. Agree or disagree, it's worth discussing.
A great discussion point, because there's personal development and then there's sport. And then you take sport to the next level, and that's competitive sport. So you've got 3 different levels, all exist in schools, not personal development much. So the Russians teach their girls, their young girls, to be acrobatic.
Gymnasts.
And they teach them that so that they teach them not to fear and to teach them to have more courage, the girls. They do that nice and early. And for gymnastic, that's once again your PB. Everyone has a go. Everyone has a go. I don't know about you when you're at school, but primary school, we had to jump over that horse, that wooden horse, in primary school. We had to. No matter how hard it was for us, we had to climb on top of that horse, and we had to prove to ourselves that we could and get over to the other side. So you've got personal development where we should be teaching our kids to move in every possible way, to get their circulation going, get their lungs going, get their mind going, to problem solve, to show initiative. And then we move to the next level, team sports or solo sports. So you could be doing javelin or you could be doing soccer. And it's that at that place where people will say, okay, I know all our kids had indoor soccer after school, all the high school. It was great. All the teachers would come down and they would do that for hours and hours, up to 6, 7 o'clock from 3. And they would teach the kids to do indoor soccer. It didn't matter who you were, how good you were athletically, everyone had a go. I liked that part of that particular sport. But then they went from there to be hand selected to go to the real competition.
Yeah, the elite level. And the elite level is fine for those who want to do that. But if you want to participate, get healthy, get off your ass and away from a screen, participation is great. But on a world stage, if you want to be elite, and you mentioned gymnastics, and I cannot hear gymnastics without thinking immediately of the 1976 Olympics and Nadia Comaneci at 14 getting that perfect 10. And she was from Romania. The torture that poor girl went through in order to reach that level. And the Americans who then said, well, hang on. And so they got Western Bloc country coaches to coach at American colleges. Now, most of them stopped having fun.
Yes.
But the quality improved. It's an interesting debate to have. I want to move on.
Discipline.
Discipline. Depends on what level you want to get to.
Yeah, that's correct.
I wanted to talk to you about the pros and cons of an expensive private school versus a state tax-funded school. And just let me tell you something. There is research that shows that students at exclusive private schools actually achieve higher raw scores on average. But it's primarily because they typically come from wealthier socioeconomic backgrounds. When accounting for family income, parental education, tutoring, studies reveal little to no difference in actual academic growth compared to the other schools. But if you've got a school, and let me just read this out for you.
Yes.
Let's look at some of the annual fees at Australia's most prestigious boarding schools. $100,000. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the national median full-time wage is $98,000. A BMW X3 is $100,000. 10% deposit on a $1 million home is $100,000. Cranbrook School, which is in the leafy eastern suburbs, is in Bellevue. Year 12 tuition, $52,000, $470,000. Boarding, you can add an extra $46,000, $99,078. And there's a whole list of them. $90,000. Geelong Grammar, $93,840. King's School at Parramatta, $88,350. It's a lot of money. Do you think academically that a prestigious, expensive school provides a better education than a state government-funded school?
Okay, so first of all, I'll answer this part of the question. Do I think a private school provides a better education than a public school? A majority of private schools have more peaceful classrooms, which means teachers can teach and students can learn and there's less fear going on in the classroom. Parents are absolutely guaranteed that when their child goes to school, this is what they're paying for. So there's all, as you said, there's all different levels of prices for private schools. I've been to every single type of school you could possibly think of in my lifetime. The most remote schools where we learnt in jungles, etc., learned our geography, and to most prestigious South Australian school in Adelaide, St. Peter's Girls' School. So I've gone to them all, and I've also gone to a boarding school, and I've done both public and private. My kids were forced to go. It certainly wasn't in my plan. They were forced to go to boarding school very, very young because of the physical assault they suffered due to my job. And so my son went in grade 5 after being very badly bashed.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was a shocking story.
Was that he's being bullied?
Yeah, physically assaulted, by a gang, 2 carloads that parents organised. So both those parents got charged and convicted for it. But the Department of Education, and I'll never forgive them for this, the Queensland Department of Education, so it was the regional director of the day, refused to allow me to transfer out so that I could protect my kids and not send them to boarding school, to be able to even teach, or I was happy to demote, to be closer to them. He was grade 5 when he went, and it cost me an arm and a leg. So I fully understand the costs involved with private education and boarding schools. So, I was living hand to mouth for years and years and years and years and years, absolutely years, because I had 2 going through, but for the safety of the kids. So I was able to study all these systems and have really good conversations with the teachers and the principals too. So yes, I'm going to say an outstanding yes. Private schools in general deliver a better quality of education per population because they have the systems and the money to fund those systems to make sure that they have consistent education and all the structures in place. That is the difference.
There is a perception, I think there's a perception from parents that the teachers individually are more accountable in private schools, and that if their students aren't performing, they're made accountable, whereas in a state system, it's very hard to dismiss a teacher unless they've broken the law. Is that true or not? Absolutely true. I've spoken to heaps and heaps and heaps of private school teachers, especially during their enterprise bargaining agreement phases in their private schools. And I have a lot of private teachers ring me for advice about what can I do about this, or in a leadership role, how should I handle this situation? They are asked to do over and above hours compared to a public school teacher. So most schools, most independent schools have a religious denomination of some sort. So they're expected to do that as well. And so a lot of them work on weekends, unpaid. And once again, they're not necessarily on as good a wage as people think. So the tall poppy syndrome has a lot to do with that. The biggest issue here for me is people, because of the tall poppy syndrome in Australia, people forget, and they keep forgetting, that every person has the right to a choice. The choice a parent wants to make for their children for whatever reason they have. Now, I'll give you an example of what they did to me when I sent my kids to boarding school. Number one, they refused, the department, and I'll never forgive them, refused to allow me to have a transfer. Like, my points were hundreds and hundreds of points. I had all the points I needed plus 50 times that to get out. But no, they wouldn't. So I was forced to send my kids to boarding school. One of my kids happened to slap on a sticker on the bumper bar of my car with the name of their school. I was dragged into an investigation because how dare I, a principal, public principal, have a private school sticker on my car? And I told them where to go. I said, it's got nothing to do with you, my car. You don't pay for it.
You don't pay for anything when I use my car. In fact, I use my car and pay for all the fuel for the department. And I said, it's got none of your business. And let's not have that conversation because it will go further. And so you've got this attitude of that tall poppy syndrome.
Let me circle back.
Mm.
You mentioned your son was bullied and beaten quite badly. How old was he, and how did this happen? Were they school students that did this? What happened? Because I wanted to talk to you about bullying and anti-bullying strategies that you put in place. What happened to your son? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, it was frightening. Still is frightening.
What happened?
Recounting it. He was 10. He just got out of hospital, and he just got out of hospital because he had meningitis, so he's quite ill. And things were tough, in those first couple of months out of hospital. He used to go home. At that period, he used to come on a bus from school and come up to me and sit in the library and work until I finished school. But because he wasn't feeling very well, he asked if he could go home and just lie down. And we were on communication on the phone, etc. And I let him because he was a good boy. He was a good kid. Yep, latchkey kid. But it was about him having a lie down because of his
illness.
Illness, and he didn't want to do that in the high school because there's too much noise, etc. And of course, meningitis affects your eyes and your ears and all sorts of things. So yes, so that's what was happening. He was catching the school bus, and this particular day, that morning, I had a huge lockdown in my school, massive lockdown. And to cut it short, I had 30 drunks come up the street and jump the fence. And they were after some teachers and the school nurse.
Well, how old were these drunks?
Oh, they're all post-school.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But the leader of this particular drunken rage that day was a boy, a 16-year-old boy I kicked out of the school that morning for punching in the head and throat students at school. It was I walked him off the school grounds. He was under the influence of ice, and I knew it. It's not hard to tell. And he ripped his shirt off and he started sparring with me and everything. I escorted him out. Mum, and then he said to me, I will get you. I'll bash your kids. I'll bash your husband. I'll shoot your dogs and I'll burn your house down. The four things he said to me. I said out. Walked into the gate.
16.
But under the influence of illegal substances. The next thing I get a phone call from Mum. Absolutely off her face. Mum had a foster baby in her arms. Yes. And she rang me up and she said, I'm coming up to see you, you effing so-and-so. I said, that's fine, okay, but let's make sure that we have a meeting that's blah, blah, blah. And she came barging into the school and she had this baby in her hands. And she said, where's your effing school nurse? I'll bash that, da-da-da-da-da. And she has been saying these things on the phone. And so I locked the office up. I put the whole office on lockdown. And I said to everyone in the office, no faces. I will look after this situation. Nobody. I don't want this woman to see one single person in this office. So I met her at the door and escorted her in. She's carrying on and screaming at me, sat down. I told her the rules and regs, etc., and what was going to happen to her son. And she got up and she said to me, I'm going to bash you, bash your kids, bash your husband, kill the dogs and burn the house down. And off she went. I went, whoa, gee whiz. So I rang the department. I said, look, this is what's happened. I've got to do a report, etc., blah, blah, blah. And they just said, yeah, Tracy, that's okay. And then all of a sudden the father rang. He rang me on the phone. He did the same threats.
I'm surprised you knew who the father was. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Keep going.
No, I hear what you're saying, absolutely. And and then all of a sudden I hung up, and with about 15 minutes, one of my phys ed teachers down the other side of the school, huge school grounds, she rang me and she said, Tracy, you've got to get down here straight away. You don't want to, you've got to see what's happening and we have to do a lockdown. I said, we have to do a lockdown? And she said, yes. I said, hit the button now. And I ran out onto the oval and I looked at this mob coming up. I rang the police. They said, we can't get there. We're dealing with half that mob because there was a funeral last night and they're all drunk this morning. I said, no, mate, I don't think you understand. This is a school. Someone has to get here. He said, we'll try and get here as fast as we can. So fortunately, as I said to you in my last interview, my kids in that school knew what a real lockdown was, and that school was solid. Not a single noise. And the distance those guys moved at from when I first went out in the Oval to when I double, triple checked everything and was starting back to the office because I told them to lock down behind me and let me in. And that they were behind me it was just a surge. They're behind me. And I thought, oh, I'm gone. I'm absolutely gone. And then the boy was leading the group. So he was coming in behind me, standing behind me. The others were a little bit distance behind him. And I just...
Did they have weapons?
No, not that I could see, no.
Okay.
But, and not that I could see, but they probably did. But anyway, he wanted me to turn around and face him so he could hit me. And of course, I wasn't going to turn around and face him. I just kept walking. I didn't say anything. And I kept walking. I got to the office. I went in and I rang the police and I said, I'm desperate, absolutely desperate here. And they were going around through the school, come out, threatening everyone and whatnot. And then all of a sudden the police came and they broke up. I managed that. I went back to the office to report that. And just as I sat down in the office, my phone rang and my 10-year-old son was on the other side of the phone, and he rang me and said, Mum, they've bashed me up. And I said, what happened? And he said, I was standing outside waiting for the school bus, and 2 carloads of your kids from your school came and their mums, and they bashed me up. They bashed me up really badly, Mum. And I said, how did that happen? How did that happen? You're waiting for the school bus. What did the other people do? And he said, nobody helped me, none of the bus drivers, nobody in the cars. These people were renowned for their violence. So they got him up against the fence. And so, of course, they smashed up front. He turned around and they did his back. Anyway, I rang the police straight away. And I said, this is what's happened. And I rang my boss and said, I've got to go. He said, just go, Tracy, go now, look after him. And then I raced round home and I saw his little face, and he's 10 years old. And you could barely see his face. It was cut and swollen, and his bottom, his chest, everything was just black and blue. Even his buttocks. They had a good fun, these big high school boys, with him. And then the police, my boss rang me, said, Tracy, I know this is really hard. I want you to take him straight to the police station first before the hospital. And I'm going, no. He said, just do it. I said, okay. Anyway, I drove up to the police station, and all the police were standing out the front. Come on, quick, inside. Come on, Sam, come with us. And I didn't know what was going on, and they sat us down, and those guys took over, and they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They weren't just your average police; they were trained in riot police. These guys were from Brisbane. They are phenomenal. Australian kickboxing champion in the middle of it.
Where was this? Where is this school?
In Charleville High School. He was at the Catholic school, a primary school. So what the police did was they said to him. They got all the names that they needed from him, and then they said to him, we want you to listen how we deal with these people, Sam. It's really important. And I'm going, tearing my hair out. No, he's got to go to hospital. But no, it's very important, Tracy. He hears this. So anyway, they rang him up. They rang up the parents, and they said, where are you? And they said, halfway, to this local town, 100K away. And they said, okay, you make sure you go to your place. And have you still got the baby? Yes. All right then. So don't move when you get to that place, will you? And the way they did it was so well done, because we're coming right now, and there'll be a woman police officer, and there'll be a couple of cars of male officers. Don't you dare move. You just stay there and wait for us. Off these police went. Sam went up to hospital, and then they drove out there, took the baby and charged them. And they said to me, rang me and said, don't worry, you're not coming. You don't come to court, Tracy. They're charged and convicted. We've got everything on them. Found all the drugs, you name it. They've admitted to everything, and they were both charged and convicted. And they actually led them out of town that day.
What jail time did they do?
I don't know whether they just fines or not. I don't know, actually, to tell you the truth. It was probably the last thing on my mind.
And that charming woman, the mother, who's got a foster child in her arms when she's gone to the school.
Yes.
She's getting a benefit from being a foster carer. Unfit.
Yes.
Was she charged?
They were all charged. The father was charged under the new laws then, where you're using a telephone device when you're using,
Yeah.
I can't remember the law at the moment, but there's a saying for that. But anyway, so they did, and they were left.
A carriage service.
Yeah, carriage service, that's correct. And so then Sam said to me when he recovered, he said, Mum, I'm not going back to school. I said, no, that's fair enough, Sam. I said, I'll take some time off and, we'll just do out the term. I went on leave and we'll do out the term. And then we talked a lot and he said, I want to go to boarding school, Mum. I said, but Sam, you're 10. He said, no, I'm not staying here and that's that. And I said, right on. So I rang up one of the schools in Toowoomba and I explained the situation. They said, bring him down. He can
Was it a Catholic boarding school?
No, it was just an independent school.
Oh, okay, because when I went to Chevalier,
Yeah.
the CHS, Catholic High School,
Yeah.
the CHS was one of our sister schools. We flew to Brisbane and caught a bus to Toowoomba to play sport for a week. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Only time I've been to Toowoomba. Anyway, sorry. I thought it might have been the same school.
No. So he went to prep. It was called Toowoomba Prep. And he went there and honestly, it was just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Everything was wonderful. Those teachers are honestly just wonderful. It was fantastic what they did to help him.
Yeah.
To get over what was such a traumatic experience. And of course, the trauma for me was that the department wouldn't release me to go and live there and have the kids at home and just be day schoolers. But that's it in a nutshell. I wrote a book, Fearless, Buckle Up, Build Resilience. It's the first chapter in that book. I'll send a copy to you.
Please. Fearless.
Yeah, and
by Tracy Tully. And don't get the audio book. Get it. Put it on the table at your first date. But bloody well read it. So I went to boarding school for disciplinary reasons, not like poor Sam. It was one of the best things that ever happened, and I didn't enjoy it much. Being a Catholic school, number one, I wasn't Catholic. Two, I didn't play cricket. I didn't participate in cadets, and I didn't play rugby union. However, can I just tell you, the bullying that went on in my first year, which was third form, year 9, was not just systemic. It was encouraged because it built character. And so many of the boarders there, their big brothers and their fathers and their grandfathers have been there. They were old school, old boys.
Yeah.
They were treated like protected species, really. And the bullying that went on was actually encouraged because it built character. It was an all-boys school. The second year, which was 1977, fourth form, year 10, it went co-ed. Now, this is just my observation.
Yeah.
The whole place softened.
Yeah.
It softened. The boys' attitudes changed. It was a completely different feel in that second year because it went co-ed. How do you feel about co-education versus single-sex education?
I believe in it. I think it's good. I know my son, by the time he ended up for high school in a Catholic school in Brisbane, boarding school, he would keep saying, Mum, can you send me to a co-ed school? And I heard what he was saying, same thing, less bullying, et cetera, et cetera. He had a great time at that school and had awesome opportunities, et cetera. But bullying's everywhere, in every school. Co-ed does have that wonderful balance, I believe.
It does. Well, the world's co-ed, but there is a theory that girls perform academically better at a single-sex school because they haven't got pesky boys with pimples and hormones racing distracting them, because girls mature faster than boys during those teenage years. So the theory is that the girls do better at single-sex schools without the distraction. But it is an interesting thing to talk about, and I'll invite our listeners to give us their thoughts on that. How did you put in place anti-bullying strategies?
The biggest thing for me is you have a boundary and you have a consequence. Now, in schools, predominantly, it has always been about, and traditionally, rules, and regulations. But when you have rules, you can bet your bottom dollar kids are going to try and break those rules. I was one of those kids, It was the fun of it for a start, the sport, etc. So the biggest issue there is to make sure your language changed when you were talking about behaviour. And I did it always telling stories. I used to tell stories all the time on assembly to soften it, but to make sure they understood the message behind. So my very first day at a school called Oakey State High School, I had sat in the car park a couple of days before I took on my first job to watch what was going on and see which teachers weren't getting their kids into class and which were, and who the kids were that were messing around and what they were doing and where they were hiding. Everything. It was absolutely wonderful. Recon, going undercover. Anyway, I turned up.
Yeah, you did a recce.
I did a recce. I knew what I was doing. Anyway, I turned up on the first day and I said to all the staff prior to coming in, I said, we'll have an assembly the first day and I'm running it my way, okay? And I want to meet all the school captains, the seniors, before we do it. So I had it all set up nicely and I had the school captains swap uniforms. So the boys had to wear the girls' uniforms, the girls had to wear the boys' uniforms. Huh. We rehearsed a little drama scene, and I had this British bulldog. And they had to bring her in at the end of, we had a little bit of a fashion parade while I was talking about my expectations for, following the rules. And then I addressed the behaviour issues with this bulldog. So I asked one of the kids to bring the bulldog in, and they did. And she walked in and the whole assembly went quiet and started laughing because she was a British bulldog. She had that smashed up face. But before she came in, I said to the kids, I've been talking to them about behaviour, and I said, I've got this friend, a really dear friend, and she's really ugly. And, she gets bullied badly, really badly. You can see the kids go, oh. And I said, she's fat, and she's ugly and she really struggles. And I know if she was in this school, you would protect her and you would have her back and you would look after her. And they're all nodding. And I had parents, the whole hall was full of parents and everything. Who is this person listening? And I said, I'd like you to meet her so that she knows when she comes to this school with me, she feels safe. May I have your approval? And that's what I put out to the kids. And this is how you talk to them. Can I have your approval? Do you mind if I do that? Yes, yes, yes. And so I called out the school captain. He brought out this British bulldog and she came out. Well, she was just loving it. She came out and she went right up to the edge of the stage and she sat down and she scanned the whole room. And we had absolute quiet. And I had to keep a straight face. And then I talked about, this is my standard in this school, and this is how things are going to happen. This is the boundaries that I will and will not accept. So I didn't use the rules, and I said, I want you all to have each other's back, and I know you're great kids. I've heard you're great kids, blah, blah, blah. So I spoke to them about that. And at the end, she had a little singlet on, this bulldog. And as she turned around, I thanked them and said, you can take, her away. Indy, her name was. And as Indy turned around, she sat down again. On the back of her singlet, it said, I'm not wearing any pants, underpants. And with that, the whole school erupted in laughter and off the dog went. So I brought that dog in every Friday, and the disabilities kids would come and get her, and they would shampoo her and run her around the oval while she caught their tennis balls to dry her off. And that started up their vocational program of dog washing. And we'd have that every Friday where the teachers would pay. They'd book their dogs in and pay. And eventually I bought them a proper dog washing machine. And that's how we started doing the life skills program for everybody. And that dog would go off in the oval. Not one kid ever hurt her. They lost a lot of tennis balls, but that's the story.
That's a great story. Tracy, there is one other topic that I wanted to bring up with you. And if you don't want to answer this or you need time to think about it and reflect, we can do it next time. We're going to get part 3. But there's something that Nikki and I reflect on a lot, because arguably Australia's most publicised case of predatory behaviour by a school teacher aimed at a student was Chris Dawson, who's now in jail. He's a former Sydney teacher and was a hero because he was a rugby league player, played for Newtown with his identical twin brother. He's currently serving a 24-year prison sentence for the 1982 murder of his wife, Lynette. That's a separate story. He's also being charged with carnal knowledge because, as it turns out, the young girl that was in his care at Cromer High School on the Northern Beaches was under the age of 16 when she was babysitting. She then moved into the family house and replaced Lynette when Lynette went missing. Now, the reason Nikki and I talk about this is because that was 1978 when Nikki and I were in year 11.
Yeah.
And Narrabeen High was the sister school of Cromer High. And in fact, when our school went co-ed in 1976, that's when Cromer opened. The reason we talk about this is because that kind of predatory behaviour of male students towards females, that kind of predatory behaviour from predatory male teachers towards vulnerable female students went on at our school.
Yeah.
And it was like a club. And what Chris Dawson did with that young student, who we won't name, was going on at our school. Tracy, the reason we know about it is because the girls used to come to school on the Monday and brag about it. It was a medal. I am not joking. And there were 4 teachers in particular. I hope they're shitting themselves because one day it'll come out. 3 of them lived in this. There were 3 teachers. We're talking 1978, bronze skin, blonde, long hair surfers who were in their first year of teaching or their first or second year of teaching. And we're talking about girls who were in year 11 and year 12 that we know about. Year 11, our year, we knew of it. The girls bragged about it. And now you see it happening more and more, and female teachers preying on male students. And you've got someone who's in a position of trust, but a position of authority, having this power over someone who's vulnerable. And when you're a parent and you send your child to school, you want them to be educated and protected, not preyed upon. And so the reason I brought up Chris Dawson is because Nick and I often talk about these 4 teachers, 3 of them. Oh, do I tell you what subject? Am I going to identify them? Did you ever encounter that at any of your schools? And can you give me an example of what happened and how you addressed it?
I encountered a lot.
Was it males aiming at female students or a bit of both?
No, in my career, it was all males. It's tough stuff to talk about because I did a lot of it. And if you go back in the news, you'll find interviews I've done on it, especially in Sydney. With the pedophile behaviour, for me, I always made sure on the very first day of school, at pupil-free days, every single teacher in my school understood the rules and regulations when they came to the code of conduct with children. And the very first thing I would tell them is you will not have a relationship of any sort with these kids, and you will not have them on your email, your telephone. You won't give them lifts to anything, blah, blah, blah. And you can't by law until after school has started in the following year that they've left. Zero tolerance to zero communication. I think for me it was always a sixth sense because we had so much of it. So much in that particular community. I could pick them up a mile away, usually.
How could you pick it?
Oh, well, I'm very observant. I used to watch them like hawks. I watch everyone, not just teachers, students. Watch them for any peculiarities or any routines that they did that weren't correct, like, on yard duty going around the back of the hall or, places where they shouldn't be. There was some big tree bushes there that people were hiding in, and so I had them chopped down. I was at, when you speak to a child who's been
preyed upon.
No, yeah, when you speak to them and they trust you to tell you their story, and then you have to ring the detectives and you have to go through it again. After the first one, your attitude to these groomers is changed for life.
You become desensitized.
Absolutely. You have to be desensitized. You can't have emotion because you have to be able to listen to those kids when they come to you. And I was really fortunate because I would always say to my kids, I don't care what happens to you, please come and tell me and I will do something about it.
Because if you have a predator, chances are he will say to his victim, you can't tell anybody about this because I could get sacked, I could go to jail, and by the way, no one will believe you. I'm a person of authority, you're a subordinate, and whose word are they going to believe? Usually there's that kind of
absolutely, always that threat. But for me, luckily, I was ahead of the game with that because I would tell the kids on assembly, Yeah, and they knew what I was talking about was real because a lot of them have been affected by it. And I said to them, if you're a friend of someone who's been hurt, you come and tell me and I'll do something about it. But I said to all of them, you must know that the minute you tell me, I will do something about it. Do you know they all did? They all came and told me. It was horrendous, but I was so proud of them because it was such tough stuff. And of course, people were sent to jail because of it. Or lost their positions. It wasn't just teachers, it was parents, step-parents, all sorts of people in the community. I even had 2 school chaplains, that I had to exit off the school grounds for defying our code of conduct and knowingly defying it.
But it's funny, because that behaviour, those people are attracted to jobs where they are in a position of trust, surrounded by children. And I'm talking about priests, teachers, scoutmasters, swimming coaches, and often what they do is they befriend the families.
Oh, yes. Oh, most definitely. Their predatory behaviours is easy to track, actually, because they stick to the routines that work for them and that give them instant gratification. So for someone not knowing they're being watched, they're careless, actually. They can be quite careless. And so, and of course, I was really fortunate because those kids, as tough as they were, they would come and tell me everything. I knew where all the drugs were, who was selling what drugs in the town. I was constantly on the phone to the detective inspector. He said, you're my best informant. And
but see, the kids trusted you, and part of the reason is they can sense your compassion.
Yeah.
You're a mother. Yeah. You're compassionate, but they knew you'd follow through.
Yeah. Yeah, they knew I would follow through and they wouldn't get hurt. So, so I had a lot of those. And to answer your question, is prevalent, very prevalent. Now that social media is around, it's much easier for them to groom kids. So now you have to teach kids what it looks like when an adult is grooming you. And so when I worked with the task force Argus, they would ring me and they'd say, we're going to send you a piece of narrative. Can you please tell us if that's an adult or if you think that's a child? And I'd look at it and I'd ring back and say, yeah, that's an adult. And how would you
tell?
It's easy. Because when you're here in schools and you're hearing kids speak all the time, the way they speak, the pace they speak at, their punctuation, all sorts of things has a pattern. And then you go to, perps and they try and copy it, but they can't. They can't do it. And so I had a dreadful guy because in those small schools you couldn't deliver all the subjects you wanted to. So some of them I had to do online, like IT. So I would have a Brisbane school deliver to my kids online. We were able to very, very luckily stop a child from getting on a bus, a grade 10 child getting on a bus at the beck and call of this guy from Brisbane, and he'd paid for everything, a ticket. She had an intellectual disability, so we were able to stop her from getting on the bus. And when the Task Force Argus rang me, we went through the whole process of how they got to her, and the perp used her password. He was selling drugs outside the school gate of the Brisbane school, and he was giving away drugs in return for passwords. And that's how he got into the systems.
Tracy, for the parents and for anyone listening that needs help with this, what are the warning signs? Take us through it.
Yeah. Okay. So the very first warning sign is agitation. When kids are being groomed, they know something's wrong, it doesn't feel right, but then they feel special. So they get a bit agitated, they change their patterns of everything, the way they speak, the way they look. They might put makeup on, start putting makeup on. They become very secretive about things. And if you go into their bedroom, parents, you might find some things there that might make you aware. You should always have your systems, your IT systems under the parent lock, so to minimize all that. And the communication is the biggest one. So I've done a booklet of this for parents. The biggest thing is to be able to sit down with your kids each day and say, what's a positive that happened for you today? What's a positive that happened for you? Not to you, but for you. I conquered this fear. And then what's negative? What's something that worried you? if we can start having those conversations early in the piece, once again when they're in primary school, for parents, they have that communication then that's natural every day, even if it's in the car, they have it. And then the kids will start, they'll be able to see the patterns if they go quiet, if they start scratching themselves, clawing themselves, if they start hanging their head. You'll notice a change. You can bet your bottom dollar there's something going on, so you have to do your checks and whatnot. Kids, the friends usually know what's going on. In this particular, this isolated case I was just telling you about, no one knew about that child because he had threatened her with everything that he was going to kill her parents. So no one knew. And she's a journalist now. She's cool. She's a cool girl. With all that sort of thing, there's a whole range of things, but communication is the biggest one to make sure that you can talk to your kids, that you monitor their time on their computers. You monitor their time. You have a cut-off time and that's it. That's a cut-off time. I don't care what grade they're in. Once they're an adult and they're away from home, it's their job, it's their life. But whilst they're under your care, you need to be vigilant, super vigilant. These people move fast and they don't mess around.
What do you say to an adolescent child who says to their parent, "How dare you go into my room and look around and go into my diary or go into my laptop? I deserve my privacy. How dare you?" What do you say to that? I bet you've heard that.
Oh, hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. And number one is, once again, it's the boundaries and the consequences in the family home of what happens in your bedrooms, what happens with your toys when you finish them, what happens with your computers. You have to start those rules and regulations, or those boundaries, as I like to use that word, early in the piece, because it pays off. Because my comments to my kids is, did you pay for this room? Did you pay for this house? Did you pay for the clothes on your back? No. So I give you the privacy when you get dressed and you have your shower and you go to the toilet, etc. But I am able to go into your bedroom. And I'll do that for a range of things. It could be to pick up clothes. It could be check PowerPoints are off, etc., etc., etc. And I will always tell my kids, and I will stand behind you while you're on a computer, and I will ask you in front of whoever's on the screen, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? And my kids would laugh. They say, "Oh, it's my mum, don't worry." "Who's that?" "That's just my mum." And they'd go, "Hi, mum," and whoever it was. But at the end of the day, you have to set up those boundaries early, and the consequences of them. A kid demanding their privacy tells you probably there's something wrong, something happening that you need to be able to have a conversation about. It doesn't matter. It's about knowing that your kids are safe, and what will you do to ensure they're safe. And you have those conversations early, so as they grow up, they know what's safe and what isn't, and they know your expectations. Someone's asked you to send a photo of yourself doing, a compromising position to somebody, etc. They know what's right and what's wrong, kids, and you teach them that at home, what's right and what's wrong. And as you know, the statistics are that inevitably it's always someone they know that grooms them. And in the cases with the two school chappies I excluded from my school grounds, same, they groom those girls, and they were so cocky about it too.
How?
They basically, what right have you got, to intervene in this? And I said, well, when you were employed by me, I said, you have a responsibility on my school grounds. That's called the Code of Conduct. And I said, now I've inducted you in that personally. So you should have read it, and you knew, and you signed it. So therefore, you know the rules and you know the consequences here. And the parent has rung me up and said, you tried to take their daughter last night from her house, and you tried to put her in your car and drive her 1,200 kilometres away. What do you think about that? Well, you're not welcome on my school grounds. Don't you dare step foot back on the ground.
Should it be general government policy to make it illegal for any member of faculty, whether they be a teacher, a secretary, a cleaner, anyone who is employed by the school, to have an inappropriate relationship or any sexual conduct at all, whether it be by innuendo on a text, asking for an inappropriate photo, at all? It should be blanket government policy and not left up to individual schools to set their own individual standards.
It is. That is a policy of all public schools. that they can't, and people will do whatever they want. I used to say, I'd take it one step further. I'd say to my teachers, especially when grade 7 started coming to school, they're young. You know, they're young and they're used to hugging their teachers. And they'd want to hug me. I put my hands in the air every time I said, no hugging. And the teacher goes, that's a bit cruel. I said, no, it's not. It's not cruel at all. That's what you do. And you condition yourself to do it. No hugging. Please step back and talk to me so I can see your face. I remember talking to a lawyer about it. He said, but my daughters always hug their teachers. I said, fine for you, but it isn't happening in my school, that's for sure.
Which leads me to another issue. And that is, I don't know about Queensland, but in New South Wales, male teachers are leaving the profession hand over fist, particularly primary school, which is that important tier of education that we talked about. I've spoken to many male teachers who have said it's not the money. It's because of the microscopic scrutiny that male teachers in particular are under in the playground. And if a little girl falls over and scrapes her knee, I can't give her a cuddle and say it'll be okay, let's go to the nurse. It's hands up in the air and you've got to have a barrier, and we feel as though we're guilty when we haven't even done anything. And that kind of social scrutiny I don't want to put up with. We're going to put up with it in the workplace. I mean, in the workplace you can't behave that way. Correct. But we are losing male teachers. Yeah. And I find it a shame, Tracy Tully, because so many kids now come from broken homes where there's no male role model. Correct. And male teachers are their only male role model, often. Yeah. So what do you put this down to? And how do we encourage more men to want to become educators?
Well, we help them for a start. So number one is, you're right, you're correct, their sheer fear of being set up by girls. So I've seen a lot of girls set male teachers up. Unfortunately, the police are...
Really? Have you?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And
give me an example. A student setting up a male teacher?
Yeah. Emailing them to, to groom a teacher, or, come to our place. Or I've seen it all.
You sure that's not just infatuation and flirting?
Oh no! It probably, even if it is, it's
inappropriate.
It's inappropriate for a male teacher, any teacher, to.
But when it's the student approaching the teacher, first thing, the teacher should come to you.
Absolutely.
And say, Susie's just sent me this.
Yeah.
How do you suggest I respond? And come up front with it. If you get a message from a student that you think, report it.
Exactly. Yeah, and report it to me, and I deal with it. And so the teachers don't have to, because what happens is that depending on what they've responded with, I have to report it to the police, depending on how they've responded back, because they know the rules and regs, and they've all signed a contract at the beginning of the year. And so what happens then is the police do a forensic search of their phone. Every single message, everything on their phone is printed out. And now I say to the teachers, if you would like, you can provide me with a copy of that if you believe that you are innocent, and otherwise it stays with the police. But, I have to ring the department and I have to put you on notice because you've done A, B and C. But if you can give me the evidence and you can give me the situation, etc., then I will do everything I can to protect you if everything lines up. So it is about all that, and that goes from females and males. Now, obviously, there's a lot of females that are into it as well now. But way back when it certainly all began, I'd have kids coming and telling me, boys, that their uncles were raping them at home. Just horrible things that the kids... I'm not going to share a lot of it online because it's just not nice stuff. It's really horrible stuff, but people need to know that it's prevalent, absolutely prevalent out there. And for male teachers, it's a really hard gig now. It's a very, very difficult gig, and I feel for them. I really do feel for them. A male teacher will come and sit down with me and they'll say, I'm worried about this. This is what's happened, Tracy. This is what I've done. Can you please give me some advice? And I'd go, yep, A, B, C, D. I'll take that, thank you, and I'll deal with this. And then you'd ring the parent and you'd interview both the parent and the child, and you'd make sure everything was sorted. If I, for any reason at all, was alarmed, in any reason at all, then I would interview them there and then on the spot. I would take notes, I would notify the department, I'd notify the police straight away. Boom, boom, same time.
Well, Tracy Tully, we've covered some ground today.
Yeah, we have.
We have covered some ground today and all important stuff.
Yes.
The book is called Fearless. Hold it up.
Oh, where's my book? Here it is, old Fearless.
The catchphrase for today is hook up, book up to hook up, which I only discovered today. But is it on Audible book?
No, not Audible. No, actually, I was just thinking of it yesterday that I should actually put it on. I should actually voice it.
You should do it.
I should record
it. It's been a fascinating chat again, Tracy Tully. Thank you so much. You've given me way more time than we prepared.
Thank you.
But what we did was we went riffing, and we had some things prepared, but I went sideways, or as my daughter would call it, I went bing bong. A fascinating chat, and thank you so much again.
Thank you.
God, imagine having me in your class. You wouldn't have. You would have gone berserk.
No, actually, I wouldn't have, because you probably would have loved communicating.
Well, I enjoy talking to interesting people like yourself, and it's been educating. You do it very, very well. You've given us something to think about, which is what the podcast's all about. Tracy Tully, thank you again so much.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Luke, and to your audience. Have a great day.
It's the Bonafide crew, talking truth from the cab. Stories from the black.
Time to go motoring with James Ward, who is the content director with drive.com.au. There's a fair bit to get through in today's podcast. He joins me live. G'day, buddy.
Good morning, mate. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I want to talk about a couple of things, raising the speed limits on our freeways and highways, in particular the Princess Highway. We'll get to that. The Hongi Chinese car, the Chinese are really dominating the EV market. And I want to start off with a story it's news today, but it ain't kind of news.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this. We're talking about the mobile phone and seatbelt cameras. So far, they have delivered about $400 million worth of fines in New South Wales. In New South Wales.
Road safety fines.
Road safety fines. And we're talking about cameras that can detect seatbelt infringements at mobile phones, that sort of thing. And there was a case in New South Wales Supreme Court that you actually wrote about on drive.com.au about someone who was pinged. They said that is not, I am not holding a phone. I think they were holding their glasses case or reaching for their glasses, and had to go to the expense of hiring a lawyer to argue the case, and they won. There are a couple of points in all of this. Number one, when you receive this fine and the accompanying photo, if you request it, you are immediately presumed guilty, and it's up to you to then prove your innocence. And this was a very costly exercise. But not fighting it can be even more costly, particularly if you're a professional driver. And the instant demerits that you gain, because remember we start with 0, we get to 13, 14 for professional drivers, it could cost you your livelihood. So it's often really worth your while to fight it. And if you are completely innocent, hopefully win. Now, we're talking about, today it's been revealed, James Ward, that Transport New South Wales is searching for an automated enforcement system to police the state's roads, including AI-assisted decisioning to catch drivers touching their mobile phones or not wearing a seatbelt. Your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, it's that decisioning word is kind of key, because apparently the way these systems are currently employed is that the AI will detect what it thinks is a problem. So whether you're holding your phone or you're not wearing a seatbelt, and then send that to a human for review. You've got human fallibility, in that process. And so a black box that looks like a glasses case could look like a phone, so you could sort of see where it is. But if they're moving to AI-based assessment of what this is, to say
decisioning,
the AI decisioning, look, I think we're going down a slippery slope. And anyone who's watching this, it's not hard to find very funny but very telling little videos online on the Instagram reels and things like that of AI just not really making the right decisions or not really seeming to know what everybody thinks to know. And you've got these businesses basically saying, and look, let's put our cynical hats on as we normally do here. You've got a major AI company with a huge, it would be a multi-million-dollar pitch to government to get that contract. They are going to be selling the world that this thing is amazing, and it will, it'll even send your grandma a Christmas card. It will book drivers, and you're going to earn all this money. The impost is from the supplier to earn revenue as a contractual share of what it is. And, governments are going wacko means we can be fining people left, right, and centre for road safety to get more money in the coffers. This is not designed to be a government-based policing initiative to find people who are truly offending, but also make sure under our standard statutory rules of legislation, you are innocent until proven guilty. This is the problem, right? We've got things because, and again, as a reminder, most of these traffic fine things, they all come through a government website or whatever, but the majority of these systems and processes are outsourced. These are third-party businesses who are doing this. They have shareholders. They have revenue targets. This is not for the good of the people to try and make our roads safer. This is for the betterment of someone's bank account. And I don't think this is the right way to do it.
Do you know what worries me, James, is that the tender documents were leaked to the Daily Telegraph. And what it shows is that the government wants, let me just read this. The government wants a system that automates the ingestion, verification, adjudication, and processing of enforcement incidents. And it goes on, quote, enhances operational efficiency through automation, AI-assisted decisioning, and intelligent alerting. Now, you said that in the past, these cameras would go off and a real human set of eyes would have a look at it.
Yep.
This is telling me that the government's looking for an AI-assisted program that does the lot. And so you in the mail get the notice that you're done.
Yep.
These are the merits that you've gained.
Yep.
And here's your fine.
Yep.
And if you want to fight it, go to the expense to get legal representation, and good luck. And
the time too. Like let's remember, going to court is not just, you don't send an AI response back. And actually, this is a nice segue. You've now got people who are getting booked for parking fines, sending 30-page depositions about why they shouldn't pay for a parking fine because they're running it all through ChatGPT. That's treating it like a corporate antitrust case. So you've got courts now saying, well, hang on, we're not going to take an AI-based... Actually, here we go. I reckon there's a good loophole here. You've got courts that are saying they're not going to take an AI-based submission for civil matters. So there you go. There's everybody's get-out-of-jail-free card. If you've got an AI-based decision sending you to court for a civil matter, you could say, well, that's unconstitutional. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just sort of making this up as I go. I'm sort of still on the first coffee, so I'm at full tilt making things up. But this is the spiral. And if anyone out there's a sci-fi fan, this is the entire plot of the 2000 AD comics, Judge Dredd, where you've got the police are judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah. You've now got the robot. You've got AI basically saying, I think this is what it is. And you've got a government contract that says, you'll be right. That machine knows more than us, and sending you a fine. So you are absolutely guilty by Skynet before you've got to prove your innocence. And it's just not cool because this is not a road safety initiative. This is revenue. Is this making our roads safer? No, I'd rather see this money put into education campaigns. I'd like to see it in more of those shock and awe TV campaigns where you see the impact of not wearing your seatbelt and people go, I don't want to be a smear. I don't want to be sliced to ribbons on the road. I'll put my seatbelt on rather than having AI send you a fine because you're wearing a black T-shirt under a black seatbelt. Yeah, and the other thing you just mentioned, which is fascinating, is that they use AI technology or decision-making to convict you, but you can't use AI to defend you. To defend yourself. What are we doing? Australia used to be a country, mate. It used to be all about single peggers, 185 kilowatts was a lot. And, you could have fun in a Commodore or heaven forbid, going all the way back to a Sandman, something fun. But yeah, this isn't great, right? Like this is a slippery slope. I think this is where we need to see it, because these systems have proven time and time again to be fallible. Somebody is greasing the wheels here. Somebody is making money here, and that's not road safety.
Just to finish with, and this is something to think about, folks, which is what we do here on the Bonafide podcast.
This is a think tank, this podcast. It really is.
A think wank? What?
It's too early for that.
Last year, the technology produced a false positive rate of 3.74% for mobile phone offences.
Yep.
And get this, James, 15.28% for seatbelt offences.
Yeah. They're not good numbers, right? You might go, oh, it's 15%, therefore it's 85% the other way. But 15% error rate when it's your license on the line, when it's fining Australia in a cost of living crisis, like honestly, Luke, we should be on our soapbox to do this, because this is terrible. It is all about revenue. It is all about an AI company with an amazing PowerPoint deck going in to pitch the government on a utopian revenue-raising policing network, while that AI, don't think anyone's altruistic out there. They're doing it for the betterment of the community. They are making money off you, drivers, off me. This isn't cool. All these systems have been privatized.
I'd say who'll love it, the lawyers.
Yeah. Or buy shares in AI companies before the AI bubble explodes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something you're passionate about, and that is, do we raise the speed limit on some of our freeways? If they're 6 lane, 3 going one, 3 going another, they're currently at 110. Do we increase it to 130? Is that going to cause fatalities? Now, there was an interesting experiment. I think it was on the Princess Highway. Take us through it.
Yeah, so in most states, well, certainly in Victoria, the standard speed limit on freeways is 100 kilometres an hour. But when you have regional freeways, so if you're going from Melbourne to Ballarat or Bendigo, as soon as you get out of the main built-up area, that moves to 110. Those roads are, for the most part, as you say, they're 3 lane both ways. Many of the times, though, they're 2 lanes both ways. But they are good roads. You're in big Australia. You're doing long-distance touring. They're good. Between Melbourne and Geelong, so you've got the Princess Freeway there. It's currently 100 kilometres an hour, and there's a proposal to raise that to 110. So it's not a huge increase. It's in line with other interregional freeways. Geelong is essentially a major. It's not urban Melbourne, right? Like, it is the next biggest city, but it is a fair way away. This makes sense, but people are saying, "Oh my God, this is going to cost lives," and it's like, stop it. On a straight freeway, the difference between 100 and 110 is absolutely minimal. You are concentrating more at slightly higher speeds. And as you say, the idea of raising our major interstate freeways, like the Hume between Melbourne and Sydney, from 110 as it is currently to 130, everybody thinks that this is going to just get people absolutely flat throttle, treating it like a racetrack, and it'll be chaos and mayhem. No. You still have heavy vehicles that are speed limited to 100 kilometres an hour. That's where they are. But for passenger cars and other things, what it does is it means the traffic moves, and you don't end up with those cases where you've got a car doing 100 kilometres an hour next to a truck doing 100 kilometres an hour. That is more unsafe than having 130. And even on our regional roads where you can get booked for overtaking, you want to be on the wrong side of the road the least amount of time. And you see these people with caravans overtaking a truck doing 90, they're going past it at 101. And it's just like, you're watching this, it's a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, look, the idea of a minor raise in speed limits, we're not saying that these become de-restricted autobahns and it's let's go. It makes so much more sense. If you're doing that commute every day, and if you're doing, and actually it'd be really good to hear from people who are doing interregional commutes, 110 does make a difference, right? It's a 10% increase. But naturally, as a driver, your attention level goes higher. Yes, you'll be using cruise control, no doubt, but you are aware of a slightly higher speed and you do concentrate harder. And if anyone has driven in Europe where you can drive at 130 on the majority of freeways, you are concentrating, you are more aware. And at the moment, we have a problem with drivers who simply do not concentrate at all. I think to raise speeds, to get drivers to pay more attention can only be a good thing. The other way to do it, Luke, and this is something that I've always thought, and again, if we're going to go on our political soapbox and how we do it, have advanced licenses. If you are a driver who does a lot more driving and you undergo extra training and you have more experience, then you can have a 130 kilometre an hour license. And these days with ANPR, with the automatic number plate recognition systems, police will scan the number plate as you come past. They'll see that you are an advanced driver registered to that car. Even if they pull you and check your license, you're all okay. This would be a great way to do it because that encourages drivers who go, well, yeah, I'd like to have a bit of a faster commute between regional centres. I will undergo further training. I will make myself a better, safer, more aware driver so that I get a privilege to do something else. And imagine how much safer our roads would be. You wouldn't need AI. You would just have better trained drivers. And I think that's a good way to do it.
That is talk about giving you something to think about, folks.
Right.
Should you have a special license after doing a special driving course that enables you to go 130 in a 110 zone? That is fascinating. And let me put this to you. We have more school holidays, I think, than ever before. It seems that way anyway. But the two major holidays in Australia that sees more caravan use on our roads are Christmas and Easter.
Yep.
Now, that means that there are more caravans on the road during those two holiday periods. And is it safe to assume then that a lot of caravan owners and towers only drive their caravans once or maybe twice a year?
Yes.
Now, having said that, do you think that because a majority of caravan towers, they're the ones that only use their vans once or twice a year, should caravan owners have a separate license? Yes. Do you think you need a separate caravan license in order to maneuver, control, safely do both in a long vehicle that you're not used to?
Right. I've been a massive advocate of this for years, and I get a lot of support from people who are regular towers. So yes, Australia needs a towing license. The fact that you can spend the majority of your driving life in a Corolla around town and then one day wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to go on the Great Australian adventure. I'm going to swap my 1,500 kilogram hatchback for a gross combination mass 6.5 ton articulated load that performs differently in every single possible way without any further training whatsoever. It's insanity when you break it down like that. And yes, we've got a lot of experienced towers who are out on the road. If we had to do a practical test for a caravan or a towing license, they would pass flying colours every single time. But for people who do this the first time, this is not punishing them. This is not saying you don't know how to do it. This is making them safer. This is giving them the education that they need, because we see it time and time again. People with a caravan gets caught in a crosswind, you get the wobbles, the whole thing falls over. Quite often, that caravan or that combination mass of vehicle and trailer is overloaded, in which case your insurance company goes, too bad, so sad. You've just written off a couple of $100,000 worth of equipment and we don't need to cover you because you don't understand maths. This is something that would be an incredible benefit to road safety as a whole, to experienced towers who often get put into the same basket as people who are out there for the first time. This gives them credit. This trains people to be better. And it does help, because I can assure you, going from a car that you've driven around town in a hatchback or a sedan or something like that to a double cab ute or a Prado with a 2.5 ton van on the back, articulated on highway speeds on varying quality roads, that is a completely different skill. And when you consider for pilots, right? You need to be type rated for every single aircraft you fly. So the idea here, you put that to cars, it means if you're driving a Camry and you want to drive a Prado, you need to get a vehicle, you need to get an endorsement to drive a different size vehicle. That's how pilots work. But the concept of going from a single vehicle to a heavy articulated load is, without any training or guidance or insight or legality change, it's insane. And so, yeah, I've been a huge advocate for having a towing license Australia-wide. The problem we get, the bureaucracy of Australian roads is you've got a federal government that says road safety is a concern, but then they pass it down to the states, and all the states and territories have to manage it in their own different way. And it's become an election issue rather than a humanity road safety issue. And they'll talk about it, but they do nothing about it. And here's where we are. There was a press release even this morning, from South Australian Road Authority saying road deaths are up. We've got safer cars and safer roads, but we are not making safer drivers. It's the easiest thing to put a plan, better training across the gamut of driving licenses.
Okay. Next question along these lines. Mr. Give him something to think about, James Ward.
This is it. It's like four corners on this show.
Oh, three. It's the Bermuda Triangle.
It's the triangle.
Yeah. Next one along these lines. The last time I had a driver's test was when I was on my L's going for my P's in 1979. I don't have to have another driver's test until I turn 85. And this is in New South Wales. It may vary from state to state, but we'll
pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. So from 17 years of age to 85, I'm never retested. And yet the road rules and laws have changed, I don't know how many times since I got my license, being tested in Dad's Toyota Corona SE station wagon, 1979 Corona. It was a 78 Corona. And I don't have to be tested again till I'm 85. Now, do you think, to be tested more often?
Absolutely, right? Without question. And this is the thing. I don't even understand how we get opposition to this, where people say, no, the
electorate would hate it.
I'm the best driver ever. I have not changed since I was 18.
It would be a massive vote loser. People don't like Big Brother telling them what to do. I reckon there's zero votes, minus votes in it.
No, this is insanity again. It's putting popularity over what is actual road safety. See these things? I didn't have these when I was 18, right? Like, I can't see the screen very clearly without them. I've got good distance ability, but my license doesn't have a corrective eyewear stipulation on there. So, and I don't often drive with glasses on because I can see distance rather than close up.
Yeah.
But everybody changes. Your eyesight changes, your reaction time changes, your cognitive awareness changes, your car changes, technology changes, road rules changes, roads change. Why on earth we don't have regular license retesting throughout our lives? And when you renew your license, either 5 or 10 years, just do it then, right? Like, we've already got a renewal process in place. Make it so you have to sit a retest license test. And what blows my mind here, it's like when we have seatbelt discussions and there's always some idiot that rings up and says, no, I don't wear a seatbelt because you're a moron, basically, is the answer there. The idea that we don't need to keep having regular retesting, anyone who has opposition to this, I have no idea what your case is, because show me you don't change over the time. Show me that you have every single ability identical to when you were 18 to now. And if you're my age, if you're in your 50s, that's a long period of time for your body to change and your mind to change and your car to change. This is insanity. And if people say, oh, but it's bureaucracy and it costs money and whatever, I'm sorry. Driving is a privilege, not a right. We need to actually take a proper stance if we want to create a safer road network. That means fixing the potholes properly, Victorian government, you cheap buggers, and the making safer drivers, right? So then we can have, if you want that 130 speed limit to be a more advanced driver, go and get a test, have regular tests to make sure you can. If you want to keep driving, get regular testing. I've not yet ever heard a counter argument to this that stands up. So come at me.
I think it'll be a vote loser because
it's dumb, right? Like, all three of these things, Luke, towing license, regular license test, and an advanced driving position. Why on earth do we not have them?
People will say, if you've got to have a driving test every time you renew your license, that's time out of my day. It's an infringement on my
have a cry
on my civil rights. We are run by bureaucracy way too much. Here's Big Brother again telling us what to do.
And yet, when that same person gets cleaned up by a driver whose eyesight is nowhere near as good, or their reaction time is nowhere near as good, and they're crying, but what about me? I'm sorry. So once again, if you don't want to wear a seatbelt and you think you've got a good excuse, the only excuse is you are a moron. That is the only answer. But the idea here, if you don't think that we need to have regular license retesting, I get it. It's time, it's cost, it's a pain in the butt, but it makes our roads safer. Give me a counter argument that actually stands up, that is simply not, but it's an impost on my time.
James, last thing for today. It's a new car brand that has got Audi, BMW, and Lexus concerned.
Yep.
It's another car out of China. It's a luxury brand out of China. In fact, the brand we're about to talk about, folks, is now the preferred brand in China to drive diplomats around in. So it's a flash piece of work. It is called the Hongqi. Now it's spelled Hongqi. Hongqi, I think is how you say it. Hongqi.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's part of the FAW group, the second largest state-owned car maker in China. What is it?
Yeah, so look, this is China's. We're seeing the rush of Chinese vehicles at the value end of the market. They have shown you want cost-effective cars, we can deliver that. We've seen the growth of Chinese new energy cars. You want plug-in hybrids, you want full electrics, and you want them at a good cost with a lot of equipment, we can do that. So that Chinese car industry is stepping up and up and up and up. And the two channels that they are yet to really, really break through, particularly in export markets, are sports cars and luxury cars. And luxury cars are what China is more focused on other than performance. And they love a comfy car. And you've seen Hongqi has been a Hongqi has been a brand in China for a great many years. It is their Mercedes-Benz, their Rolls-Royce, their flagship luxury brand. And we know that they are moving incredibly quickly in terms of engineering and technology and now luxury. And so the idea that they can make a smooth and quiet car with premium materials that looks classy, I don't know. I'm saying the look of it. Go and have a look at it on the drive.com.au website. May not be to everyone's tastes, but I tell you what, when Audi came out with its huge grille, the Lexus waterfall grille was the thing that when that came out, or spindle grille, I think it's called, there was a lot of opposition to that as well. So the idea that we're going to have an influx of high-end Chinese vehicles, so these are going to be six-figure cars, these will be competing with our European stalwarts. What we've seen in the last couple of weeks is the consumer Chinese cars we've seen in the last few years, consumer Chinese cars are impacting legacy, cost-effective brand makers. So we're seeing the Japanese brands in particular have impact there. You've now got that medium range car, which you're getting a lot of equipment, a lot of technology for a good value. That is impacting our European brands. So we've seen both Fiat and Peugeot. You can't order a new passenger car from either one of those brands at the moment. The distributors are figuring out what to do next with those two kind of storied labels because they are simply not shifting vehicles because the market is going to other cars. So now China is coming for that luxury space. So this has got Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Lexus, BMW very much on notice that you're going to have a vehicle that will come in, it will undercut price, so it will be more affordable for a luxury vehicle buyer. But this is the next evolution. And I tell you what, when they come for sports cars, that's when things will be really, really interesting to see where it goes. But yeah, the Hongqi is coming. It's another one of our brands. I think.
How much are they? How much?
We don't know what it'll be in Australia. We don't know what the spec will be, but it will be mid-hundreds. Because currently, right, you can already get the Zeekr 009 fully electric luxury minivan, which is cool. It's over $100,000 already. I think the Denza B8, the big mild hybrid SUV or the plug-in hybrid SUV, I think it's about $100,000. So the MG convertible is over $100,000. So there are cars that are there in that six-figure range. Remember when Hyundai brought out the first Genesis Saloon and that tipped over It was just under $100,000, and people were like, "Wow, people aren't going to spend $100,000 on a Hyundai." Now you got Genesis in play. Obviously, when Toyota launched Lexus, it was a bit of a question mark. Especially that was back in 1989. Now Lexus is a very, very strong and very reputable brand. So this is moving very quickly, and it's giving us more interest and more taste. And what have we got coming up? There's Forthing, there's Dongfeng, and obviously Hongqi are coming. These are not going to be... And this
BYD is everywhere.
Well, BYD is number 2 now, right? So Toyota went from last year 20% market share to this year 15. BYD went from last year 4 to this year 8. So they're closing, right? And so what's happening though, overall sales are flat. So we're not selling more new cars. We're just selling different cars, different brands. So what this is doing, these are all conquest purchases. So rather than people buying, Fiats and Peugeots or Nissans and Mitsubishis, they're buying BYDs and GWMs and Cherries. And this is the change.
Hongqi. I'm on the drive.com.au website now looking at photos of it. You've got plenty of photos there. It's got the ugliest front grille. It looks like a vertical barbecue.
It does, doesn't it?
But from behind, it looks a little bit Lexi. It looks a little bit Mercedes. It looks better from behind than the front, but that front grille is
Do you know what it looks
awful.
like? It looks like American luxury. If you look at Lincolns, Cadillacs,
it does.
It's appealing to... And look, again, we are seeing this time and time again. The Chinese car designers, a lot of them employ design studios that are in the UK or in the US. They go to them with a brief. Because this is early days for the high luxury, like Hongqi's been around for a while, but for export luxury, they would have looked at where they go. Now, obviously, your European brands would have absolutely been an influence here. But what we're seeing with some of the other consumer brands, their designs are evolving very, very quickly as they start to get smarter and aligned to taste. So usually the early iterations aren't quite there. This one, to me, looks a little bit dated already, but it looks American. It's definitely copying the Cadillac look and the Lincoln look, which does well, but you can't export these cars into the US, so it's kind of pointless doing it that way. So we'll see where this goes. But yeah, definitely another brand to watch.
Hongqi. And you can see it on drive.com.au. You can see James Ward on the telly.
Yeah, a lot at the moment.
What have you got coming up?
What have we got coming up? We've got some more TV shows that are in edit. We've got our Sydney team put together a 8-way double cab ute comparison. So Sammy Purcell has been leading the charge there. And that goes to air in a couple of months' time. We've split it into 2 episodes, so it's like you can learn a bit more about the utes, and then we sort of come up with our best. We take them on road and off road, so it's a pretty comprehensive thing. If you're in the market for one of the popular ute models, it's a good way to kind of understand. But also for us, it's the first time we've done one of these. We normally do these editorially, and they run on YouTube or they run on the website. It's the first time we've really kind of set one up for TV, so we're going to be interested to see it. I'm on the Today Show every Sunday morning, so if you're eating your cornflakes and you want to know about an interesting topic in the car world, you can see me, bright and sparky, on a Sunday.
No, I am going to release one of television's biggest controversial secrets right here.
Yeah.
Right now on the Bonafide podcast.
This is it.
James Ward is highly tipped to replace Carl Stefanovic as the host. I'm saying it here. James, congratulations.
No.
You are officially on the short list to replace Carl Stefanovic.
Spread the word.
On the Today Show. Congratulations.
There's no congratulations yet.
You're down to the final 3.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You're down to the final 3.
Oh, mate, this is... do you know what?
James,
I had somebody ask if I was going to be the next Golden Bachelor as well. So, there's all sorts of things being spread around. Whereas currently...
And married at first sight.
Well, this is the thing. I actually would be more aligned to the Lego show. It's so... that's much more my speed.
Yeah, me, biggest loser. And don't miss my next appearance on Border Control on Channel 7. James Ward, there goes your binger. Thank you so much.
There's somebody already hearing you going, is this true? And it's like...
It's true. Spread the word. James Ward, the replacement for Carl Stefanovic on the Today Show, James Ward. We give them something to think about.
I'm going to get so many people going, I heard this. What's going on?
It's true, everyone. It's true. Spread the word. Spread the word. You heard it here first on the Bonafide podcast. Goodbye, James.
Thanks, mate. You've blown up my DMs.
I've just put your price up.
Yeah, well, there we go. I can negotiate. You could be my agent.
20%.
Done.
Truckie Tuesday is up next, and it's all made possible thanks to GME, the Aussie experts in communication tech for over 65 years. 10-4, good buddies. Whether you're passing vital road info onto the convoy, calling out a hazard ahead, or telling old mate to get off Channel 40 because it ain't a bloody karaoke bar, GME's got the gear to keep your connection steady and crystal clear. Truckie Tuesday is straight ahead. Welcome along to another Truckie Tuesday. It's Truckie Tuesday 128 as we roll down the road and try and navigate you through some of the latest trucking news and help you legally thanks to Hughes Law. We'll get the Belinda Hughes Law win of the week a little bit later on. But we want to thank you all for supporting Truckie Tuesday. And Rod Hannifey is at his home base in Dubbo, so he's on camera today. 10-4, good buddy, FAB.
Yes, mate. Yes, I'm at my 10:20 and I'm raring to go, so 10-4.
There's a bit to get through today, Rod, and the exciting news is we're going to be at the Casino Truck Show this weekend. And I've also got to say thank you very much to GME, which are CB Radios, UHF, all manufactured, made, and the technology is all Australian, and we love GME. We'll be seeing them at the Casino Truck Show, Rod.
Yes, mate. And look, the majority of blokes have got them. And, of course, it's not just us. It's farmers, it's caravanners, it's four-wheel drivers. And just a funny one, a lot of people in the caravan fraternity buy a set. So you can buy like a set where it comes with the radio you fit in the car and a little handheld. And you'll often get, it depends on how well they get on. It'll either be the wife or the husband driving, and the other one will have the other little UHF, and they'll be at the back of the caravan saying, left, no, not that left, the other left. No, go right. Stop. So, yes, trying to back the caravan in can be very entertaining to watch.
Indeed it can. And as I say, Hughes Law, who are new sponsors of Truckie Tuesday, just go to hugheslaw.com.au. Belinda and her very, very qualified, talented team are dedicated to helping you navigate the legal system, which can be daunting, Rod. And Hughes Law, my God, they get results. hugheslaw.com.au. Now, we're going to start with some voicemail, Rod Hannifey. This is Robbo, who's a truckie, and we need your feedback on this. Here it comes.
Yeah, hey Luke, it's Robbo, the truck driver, mate. I've got to put something out there for your legal eagle to actually sort of comment on. It's these new fit to drive laws that are going to sort of be coming in. I've got to firstly say I think it's a fantastic idea that they're actually going to be introduced. But there's a couple of stings in the tail that I think people need to really be aware of, is that if you class yourself unfit to drive and you ring your boss up and you say you're unfit to drive due to diarrhea or feeling crook or whatever, you've got to be careful that you don't actually shoot yourself in the foot, because the way I read the law is that if you say you're unfit, that means you have to go and get a medical certificate to say you're fit to drive afterwards.
Well, Rod, it is a question for Belinda Hughes at Hughes Law, and I will put that to her down the track. But, Rod, just off the top of your head, what's your reaction to Robbo's dilemma?
It's always been a concern that, who's going to pay? If you just say, I'm unfit, who's going to pay you? Well, if you've got sick pay owing, again, my understanding is that, you can have one day off and be sick and not require a doctor's certificate. I always thought it was more than one day or something like that. It raises, as you say, legal concerns. So, and it's not just unfit as in, my arm's fallen off. You could be unstable. You could have not slept during the night because your baby was up all night. You can say that you're unfit for those things, but then you're probably right, don't qualify for sick pay. So that would depend on what's in the award. It would depend on what you're saying and how long you're off. And it's been one of the concerns that it's a real grey area. And we won't know until it really goes to court and or someone makes a ruling on it. So I'd be interested in Belinda's take.
Yeah, Belinda will be the one to answer that question. Now, we got a message from James, and I've had a read of this. And when I first started off reading this, Rod, I went, where is this going? But it's actually okay. Let me read this to you, Rod Hannifey. It's from James. He says he's a 35-year-old owner-driver in Brisbane. I'm an ex-tanker wanker turned a bony. A bony. Collecting animal parts, fat, inedible meat, seafood waste, and dead chickens for rendering. Not the most glamorous job, but bloody essential. Bloody being the key word here, I'm tipping. The plant I drop off at processes around 5,000 tonnes of raw material a week, keeping a massive amount of waste out of landfill. The name Boney goes way back to when blokes used to collect mostly bones from the local butcher shops. Okay, bit of history, Rod. The reason for my email, this is where I thought, I pick up fat and bone from a butcher at Palmdale Shopping Centre. I won't give the exact address here, but anyway, he says, I noticed there's a 24/7 Indian restaurant and a 24/7 fruit and veggie shop in the complex. I thought this would be a cracker spot for truckies chasing a decent feed after hours. It'd be a bit tight for a B-double, but there's plenty of parking along Logan Road and enough room inside the centre for a semi. I've been listening since day dot back in the Triple M days, and I love the show. Keep up the good work, guys. I'm heading down to the Casino Truck Show on the weekend, so hopefully I can catch up with you there and say good day in person. Now, when he was saying he was collecting meat and fat and bones and waste, and then he's talking about the Indian restaurant, I went, oh no, where are we going here? But I kind of see where he's going, Rod.
Yes, mate. And look, back in Tanker Wanker days, we used to cart tallow, which is, of course, what comes out of that rendering process. And as you say, it does tend to get a bit on the nose. I went somewhere on the way home yesterday and the bloke said, what's that I can smell? He said, you got diesel on you? And I said, yeah, I was cleaning the turntable. So I've got a greaseless turntable and you can smell it, gets in your skin. And the render was the same. Whenever I came home, where have you been? God, that stinks. So, yeah, look, it is a valued process to get rid of those things. And of course, then it goes into soap and all sorts of things like that. So it does get used, mate. So, look, he's out there doing a job. Good on him. And finding good food is getting harder and harder. A lot of blokes now are reverting back to pubs, Luke. You know, where you can go in and you can get your counter lunch and have a glass of soft drink or something with it instead. But that's some of the places that we're going to have to go because some of the roadhouses are disappearing and then they shut too early and, it's a real problem.
All righty, Boney. So we've got a tanker wanker, we've got a turd herder, we've got a mud carter and a Boney.
Something new.
Something new. I used to get called Boney. There used to be a TV series about an Aboriginal black tracker. Do you remember that in telly?
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I'm trying to think of Blake's name.
I'll think of it in a second. But he was actually a Kiwi, which is a shame, and he wore dark makeup, which was a serious shame. But because of my name, I used to get called Boney. So there you are. Let's have a look at some of the news that's making news in the truckie world this week. Two of Australia's largest transport associations have called on the federal government to maintain current fuel tax relief for trucks until at least the end of August, Rod. The ATA, their CEO is Matthew Munro, who says the fuel excise and road user charge on truck fuel are set to return to normal on August the 3rd. Now, that we've known that, but they're hoping for an extension. Rod, what's your word?
Well, of course, mate, we've discussed how the fuel is a contributing factor to inflation. Of course, everything that the price of fuel goes up, then the cost of everything goes up. If you lived in your own home and made your own garden and everything like that, and you didn't have to use transport, well and good, but that's not going to happen anywhere yet. Of course, the war is on, then it's off, then it's fixed, then it's not, then it's broken, and then we're going to bomb them, and then we're not. And so we don't know. We just end up as the user that turns up at the servo, buys the fuel and delivers the products. And if they allow the fuel to go up without retaining that excess cut or the drop in the road user charge, and look, roads are a whole other thing, and I know that the government's hurting in that way. We're looking to see whether we're going to get another increase in interest rates, and certainly fuel is one of those important factors in inflation, and how they deal with that is going to affect not just us and the ability to do the job. It's going to affect the people that buy things every day, every way down the track.
Yeah, for sure. So it's currently at 16.4 cents a litre and due on the 3rd of August to go back to 32.4 cents. I think there's a lot of pressure on the government to keep it at 16.4. We'll wait and see, but hopefully that happens because it doesn't just help truckies, it helps all Australians because it will make everything a little bit cheaper, hopefully. The subject of international drivers is back in the news. Light vehicle licence holders from 12 overseas jurisdictions have been granted a faster path to gaining an Australian licence. The licensing authorities have agreed to recognise driver light vehicle licences issued in Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Serbia, Slovakia, Slovenia, South Korea and Taiwan. Ausroad says these changes are not yet in effect, but each Australian state and territory will introduce them progressively over the coming months. What are your thoughts?
So that's 12 more, up to a total of 40 countries they now recognise. But the important word there is light vehicle. So you come over and you get a car licence, allows you to drive. It does not apply to heavy vehicles. You're still going to have to be licensed and tested for anything above a car. And the way you read that straight away, Luke, you think, oh, no, God, they're just going to let blokes run loose. That's not the case. It's light vehicles only. So I'm surprised the way they actually use that headline, mate.
Well, there it is. And the reason is we're not breeding and training Australian drivers. Maybe that's what needs to be addressed first. I mean, it's like apprenticeships, isn't it?
It is. But then, of course, you know, those in the past, there were people who did manage to come here and get a heavy vehicle licence. That's been the problem. They've managed to either bypass the system or shortcut it. And geez, it goes back nearly 10 years, Luke, when the first one was outed in Western Australia. A bloke was selling them to his mates. Then there was another one in Victoria. And then, of course, there's been a different one in the States. They were flying people to Queensland, getting a licence in the morning. And at that time, Queensland would say, where do you live? And all you had to say was Carina. You didn't have to prove you lived there. They'd just say, okay, here's your licence, away you go. And then they'd be back in Melbourne and on their way to Perth that night. So those loopholes, one, should never have been there. Two, took far too long to close. And hopefully now there's none left.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. Okay, we'd love your feedback on that. Leave us a voice message, 0291289311. Now, sham contracting. Gee, I thought we'd had this covered, but it's back in the news this week. Over this year, sham contracting has shifted from being an industry concern to a major national enforcement issue. Most businesses are continuing to do the right thing, apparently. Governments and regulators are becoming increasingly concerned about these, that these are not. Now, National Road, alongside other industry groups and operators, have consistently pushed for greater recognition of sham contracting. What's the latest as far as you're aware, Rod?
I don't know whether you've ever seen it come up. Have you heard of primary producer rego?
Go on.
So if you're a farmer and you go out and you buy your nice big flash Kenworth with a set of tippers and you cart your own product at harvest and you cart it off, then you get reduced rego. You don't pay any excise on it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's fine if you cart your own produce. The thing is, when you've done that, then you go off and cart for somebody else and you're still running around on that primary producer rego. Now, back in the day, there was a specific number plate. But now that's disappeared. So unless you actually see a truck, put in the rego to scan it, the same as you're supposed to check the rego on your trailers that you tow to make sure they're currently registered, because if you drive off, then there's no third party and all the insurance concerns. And unless you go looking to find that, people don't know. And then again, they're competing with a bloke who's paying full price for everything. And it's another one of those things that's been there for a long time, Luke. There was the odd farmer that did it and he might did an extra couple of loads and that didn't matter. But, you know, there's a lot of talk about how that too, because it's been there but not policed and not pursued, has become a bigger problem. So, look, you know, then we go to roads and you know what it's like. There's so many things to fix. Again, I just had two emails. Oh, you know, we need another Razorback. And look, mate, that did work at the time. I don't know that it's going to work now. And gee, so many people have said what we need to do is all sit home and have a spokesman. But mate, there's that many blokes that have got different opinions. You'd have more opinions than people involved, and the government won't listen unless we go to them with a detailed
You need a
outcome.
united voice. You need a united voice.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you need a united voice. I totally understand that. Very frustrating. Now, there's been, and by the way, a source of our stories this week coming from Owner Driver magazine, which you write for, Rod.
Yes.
Are you in there this week?
This month. It's a monthly publication.
I meant
Luke.
that.
I've been writing for them for 26 years. I've only missed one column in 26 years. I had pneumonia. I thought that was a good enough excuse.
No, it's not. It's not.
But I had to produce a note, yeah.
But this is one that interests me and will interest everyone listening. The National Road Transport Association has renewed its call for the road user charge, the RUC, which you talk about all the time, to be dropped back to zero. They're warning it is the only lever available to prevent another global fuel shock from hitting Australian families. Rod?
And we've spoken about how they're looking at changing the way that that's organised. So we believe as an industry we pay our fair share towards the roads. We're not the only people that use them, so we shouldn't have to pay for all of them. But again, it's another impost on industry. And if that fuel price goes up like it did before, then everything else is going to go up as well. They're saying it's a lever. The excise is the other one, but then the excise applies to everybody's fuel and the government loses more money. Of course, it's different if you're going to save $3 on your tank of petrol in your car. It's a bit different when you're saving, $1,000 on a tank of diesel for your truck, and or that other charge is at least removed while we get this war sorted out.
So, what's the answer?
Well, the answer is, they've got a good point. It would be a contributor to inflation. Yes, they're going to lose money, but it will soften the blow, and they've got to decide which way they want to go.
Okay. Now, Rod, do you remember when we were on the Triple M network, we used to get calls from Swampy?
Vaguely familiar, yeah.
Well, he's written in, and he says, last night I broke down halfway between Oodla-Wirra, O-O-D-L-A. Geez, I'm glad I'm not putting that on my logbook. Oodla-Wirra and Yunta.
Yes.
Geography lesson, Rod. Where are we?
We've come from South Australia back towards Broken Hill, mate.
Okay. About 2.5 hours south of Broken Hill. No Optus phone service. Andrew, another truck driver from Newcastle, stopped to make sure I was okay. He lent me his Telstra phone so I could ring the boss to organise repairs and also ring my princess so she wouldn't worry when I didn't get home. There is still camaraderie between drivers out there in the bush, so I think Andrew from Level Beyond should become our first hero of the highway. Andrew from Level Beyond, Rod.
Good on you, mate. So, speaking of on the road, I had a very interesting evening travelling up the Pacific Highway last week. So, I've come up on a B double, and well, actually, the B double passed me first, and I believe it was a lady driver, and then she slowed down, and I've sort of caught up to her again, and I said, "Are you right there?" Yeah. She said, "This van is playing games." Right. So there was a little white van.
Yeah.
It came up beside her.
What sort of a van? What do you mean a van? What van?
Like a Ford Transit van. Like a Ford Transit van, that sort of thing. A Toyota van. Right. Can't remember what brand it was, but just a white van, a small van, a bit bigger than a car. And anyway, it went past, then it slowed down, then it sat beside her. And then eventually she slowed down because she got sick to death of this bloke playing games. And she said, well, you go, see what happens with you. So I went round.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've caught up. I've passed the van.
Yeah.
But, when you come up to overtake,
yes,
the van has actually moved from the left lane to the right as I'm catching up to allow me to go through on the left. Now, look, it does happen with pilot vehicles. They'll move over for you so you can keep going through. But I don't think I've ever had it happen in a car on the highway. And I thought, well, that's strange. And I looked down and I was a bit scared. I was talking to a mate on the phone and he said, I hope he doesn't turn the interior light on. You might get a bit of a surprise.
Oh, no.
Thank God he didn't do that. No, he didn't turn it on.
Yeah.
But it was just, he just sat there and you'd pass him and then he'd slow down and then he'd speed up. And then this mate I was talking to on the phone, we decided we'd pull up and have a coffee because I haven't seen this mate for years. And he'd been up there doing a delivery. So we pulled in. The van pulled in. He watched him where he went. I don't know where the bloke went. But then I pulled up at the Arrowbora rest area later that night, and the van pulled in as well. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit scary. But look, never saw the bloke again. But it was just really strange. And the other one I've got to say, mate, I might have mentioned to you once before, we've talked about roundabouts.
Yes.
So I come into a roundabout, and the law is, Luke, what is the law with roundabouts? Who has right of way?
Anyone on your right or anyone already in it?
No, not on the right. Anyone in it. Once you cross the line, you own the roundabout.
Yeah,
there is no right of way law.
But if somebody's already in it, technically, if they're going
That's
around,
right.
they
They're in
are
it,
on your right.
But if
they're
they're
on your
coming, But if they're coming from your right and they're not in it, you're in
That's
it,
right.
you own it.
Anyone in it.
Yep. So I'm coming up. There's a car coming from my right. He's a bit way back. I see him accelerate to try and race me. I've got into the roundabout. I've virtually got the prime mover and the first trailer in, and he's sitting there on the horn. So I just stopped in the middle of the roundabout. Bloke winds the window down. He said, "You didn't give way to the right." I said, "I don't have to, mate, not in the roundabout." I said, I have right of way on the roundabout. "No, you don't." I said, "Mate, go and read the law." And look, again, they sit there and blow the horn when they don't know what the law is. And sometimes, mate, they speed up to try and beat you, and then you've got to lock everything up so you don't hit them. I really don't understand why people don't know the law. It is different with the change, but that's the law. The first vehicle that crosses the line and enters the roundabout owns it.
That's right. If the car that's in the roundabout has right of way.
That was that. Now, look, another thing about on the UHF, that there's been a lot of angst about overseas drivers who don't turn the radio on. Now, this week, I think I've seen 3 trailers going down the road with no lights on. Now, one bloke, I called him up. I said, "Mate, copy there in the train. You realise you got no lights on the back trailer." "Oh, thanks for that, Rod." He said, "I'll pull up here and check it." No problem. I've had others, and one bloke said, particularly the road across to Adelaide, there are so many trailers running across there that have no lights on, and you call up and you either don't get an answer, so they're either sick of being told, or you're told, "Shut up, mind your own business," by someone who doesn't come from Australia. So again, mate, we don't call people up because we know they come from somewhere else. We call them up to help. We call them up to offer advice. Are you aware you have no lights? Mate, do you know that you've got a tyre that looks like it might be flat? And you do that to help another driver. But then, unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of reverse racism now, Luke.
Right.
Now, we don't condone anybody abusing anybody else on the radio. We can't stop them, but we don't condone it, and you shouldn't do it. We've got to share the road together. But if you call up to try and help someone and they turn around and abuse you for it because you're trying to help them, mate, I don't know how we solve that problem, and it's something that we have to fix because there will be more and more overseas drivers coming here.
As we've just said.
Like you said, we're not growing our own.
We're not growing our own. If you've got a solution, if you'd like to comment, please leave us a voice message or shoot us an email because we need as much feedback as we can possibly get. You know, a UHF isn't just an accessory. It's a lifeline. It's exactly why I'm stoked to have GME on the Bonafide podcast. They're the only Australian manufacturer of UHF CB radios and emergency beacons, operating right out of a purpose-built HQ in Sydney. You want to know how many locals they keep in steady work? 250. And the gear they build doesn't just keep the Bonafide family safe on the road. It's engineered specifically to handle the bull dust, the corrugations, and the longest hauls you can throw at it. If you love Truckie Tuesday, back the brand that backs us. Head over to gme.net.au. That's gme.net.au. Links are in the description. Let's get back to the chat. We're off to the Casino Truck Show this weekend. You've been there before. What do we expect? This is an eye-opener for Kelsey, myself, and Nikki.
Mate, it's an enormous event. The standard of vehicles will be outstanding. There are a number of companies that are going to a lot of trouble to make sure they've got trucks there. There will be vendors. There will be industry events. They've got a Friday night lights, which you park up and you've got all your lights on. They've got a parade through the city on the Saturday morning. And then it's virtually go around, chat to your mates, buy bits and pieces. And then there is an awards ceremony on the Sunday night for, I think there's 80 awards. They're saying they're capped at 500 trucks. I was lucky enough the first time I went to have my trailers there, but I was sort of out on the perimeter rather than in the middle. And look, mate, it's one of those things where we get the public to come along. They can talk to a truckie in an informal setting. They can have a look at the trucks and see what they're like. And it's one thing to see them going past on the highway, Luke. It's another to see them up close. And some of the level of detail and some of the effort Blake's put in is just phenomenal.
Fergo is going to go off.
Yes, he rang. I was at Broken Hill on Thursday morning. I didn't get to say good day because they were busy and so was I. And, of course, he's moving at this stage too, mate. The family's moving.
To where?
So they go, probably coming to Dubbo at this stage. They've got they've got a bit of a plan in mind.
See,
got a couple of things to do.
He's the moth and you're the flame, right? Anyway,
the draw card, yeah. Anyway, they're going to Casino Truck Show first. He's offered to come down and give me a bit of a hand to clean the truck because I don't know when I'm actually going to get there or how and which direction and all that's still in play. So, but he's offered to give me a hand, so that's really nice. And then they've got a few things in mind, and at this stage they're looking to settle in Dubbo in the future.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, we'll catch up with Fergo. We'll catch up with a lot of old friends, and we'll make some new ones. There's a little bit of folklore surrounding Casino. Do you know the Chopper Read story?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to go into it? Want me to tell you?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay. Well, this goes back to 1992. Mark Chopper Read spent a lot of his life in jail, and he met some very dubious characters, and he attracted dubious characters when he was outside. And one of those characters was a bloke called Sid Collins. And you can Google this, Sydney Michael Collins, who was a bikie leader, and he was a former acquaintance of Chopper. Mark Chopper Read, if you look at his last interview with Tara Brown on 60 Minutes, he said he didn't think much of the bloke, but, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer, Anyway, he's invited to Sid Collins' wedding. He was told that he had to provide $8,000 as a present. And Chopper goes, I'm not giving this bloke $8,000. What am I going to give this bloke $8,000? Anyway, so according to the story, Sid Collins then gives up Chopper Read for a crime that he was involved in, and he does more time.
Is this because he didn't bring the 8,000?
Because he didn't bring the 8K.
Right.
Chopper Read gets back out of jail down the track, and he and Mark Jackson, are doing that speaking tour that they did. You remember they would go around from pub to pub, town to town, city to city, with a microphone and tell stories of their dubious backgrounds and tell funny stories. There was a lot of opposition to that because they were getting profiting from proceeds of crime and the book and everything. But anyway, So anyway, Mark Chopper Read and Mark Jackson are in Casino at a hotel doing their speaking tour thing.
Yep.
And after the show, they're sitting at their table signing books. Who should come up but say, "G'day, Chop, how are you, mate?" Sid Collins.
Yes, man.
And he has the temerity to ask Chopper Read for his autograph, to autograph a book. Chopper's absolutely furious, can't believe the gall of this bloke. And Chopper says that later that night, he took Sid Collins for a drive and shot him dead and buried him in Casino. Now,
never been found?
Never been found.
Wow.
Now, there are underworld figures and now people in the media who will say that was Chopper Read embellishing, because he knew he was dying.
Ramping it up.
He had liver cancer. He was yellow. If you Google Mark Chopper Read, Tara Brown, 60 Minutes, you see how yellow he is, right?
Yeah, yep.
And I think the interview took place in Tasmania where he went to live. Anyway, they reckon that he threw that story in for a little bit of extra push for his book. And a little bit of, and he so it's split down the middle as to whether or not it actually happened or whether Chopper is just bullshitting. But that's the legend of the story about Sydney Michael Collins and Mark Chopper Read and the night out at casino. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Unreal, mate. Well, I'm reading an audio book about the Bra Boys.
Oh, God,
back
yeah,
in the day.
Maroubra.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's a bit interesting. So, there was an audio book made of a bloke who was an undercover copper and got into one of the bikie gangs. And, of course, he's living anonymously somewhere far, far from Australia, but still looking over his back all the time. So, yes, they have long reach and long memories, I fear. And, look, how do you fix those things? Look, you can't sort of change people at birth. Is it one, how they're treated, and you've only got to talk to our coffin confessor, mate? Like, the childhood like that, and he's still come out good, but not everybody does,
Yeah, well, I wonder if we'll go to the pub where Mark Jackson and Mark Chopper Reed.
Well, Cindy Collins walks in, mate, we'll know for sure.
Oh, yeah. So where are we going to go eat in casino? We'll try and find that pub, but is there a good Chinese? Where are we going?
Mate, I got to get there first. I know. And, of course, the other thing be that weekend, the 1st of August, is when HVNL 2, the Heavy Vehicle National Law 2, starts on the 1st of August. The biggest change in road transport law, probably in the life of the law. Again, mate, we discussed that it took 9 years. You heard me, 9 years, with a review of the review and a review of the review of the review. And I don't think that the truckies got listened to, but it becomes law on the 1st of August. Not everybody has to transition on that day. That would be ridiculous. The current scheme under which you operate will be allowed to operate for 2 or 3 years, depending on how you approach it. But over those 3 years, everyone will have to transition to HVNL2. As part of that, if you have accreditation, you will have to have a safety management system. Now, that sounds nice. Whether it's going to change the industry, Luke, we don't know. Belinda has raised a couple of concerns about a couple of little things in there that not everybody probably knows about. And, of course, the fitness to drive that we discussed earlier, that's a part of that law as well. How that gets managed in the end, if somebody says, geez, you're a fruit, Luke, right? You shouldn't be on the bloody road. Well, you prove it, mate. That's a whole grey area there. But some things will change for the better. There will be a couple of less restrictions and less likelihood of logbook fines. There will be, a review of EWDs that we know they're going through that at the moment. And again, we've spoken about the advantages of an EWD. It gets rid of some of those little fines, and some of those changes in the law will do that. But the biggest thing from the driver's point of view is the more than doubling in the maximum court-imposed penalties for many of those offences. And if you look at Belinda's page, she has a comparison there, Luke, between standard traffic offences and those for us. And you look at someone who's gone out and done something stupid, you actually got to do like 40k over the limit 3 times, unlicensed, unqualified, drunk and everything, to get a fine of $5,000. And if you're a recalcitrant offender and you haven't got your logbook, the fine is $13,000 for court-imposed fine, or one missed entry if you do that regularly. So, mate, big change. You've got to be aware of it. I've got to say, we'll give a bit of a plug. Copy Southbound podcast, mate. They've got a thing called The Missing Link, and it covers some of those changes. And if you get a chance, Luke, have a look under White Line Transport. They were taken to task by initially SAPOL and then the NHVR, and virtually nearly crucified. Their business was virtually nearly destroyed. They fought back. They've beaten all the charges. And it's just one of those things where, as an industry, without people like Belinda to help us, you're on your bloody own as a driver. Knowing the law in every state, having to understand it all and then deal with it is one of those things we don't all do as well as we could, mate.
So, Rocket Rod, I guess it's time for the Hughes Law Win of the Week. Belinda Hughes, principal of Hughes Law, can't be with us on screen today because she has something way more important, and that is netball.
Well, it's not me playing, Luke. It's my daughters.
Yeah, all 3 of them play netball?
No, just the younger 2.
The younger 2. Now, let me guess. I can't guess. I can't see them. Are they tall?
Yeah, both of them are quite tall.
Goal defence?
Yeah, my little one's goal defence.
And the other one's goal shooter?
No, she's mid-court. She plays centre.
Centre.
Yeah.
That's the position where you do most of the running. But the frustrating thing about netball is only two people can shoot, and that's the fun part of netball. You know what they should do? They should
What's that, Lou?
They should make netball 5-a-side, let you dribble the ball, let everyone shoot and put up a backboard. But that's
There is
a
a name for
topic.
that.
That's a topic for another day. Belinda Hughes from Hughes Law. We'll get to your win of the week in a second, but we've got this inquiry from one of our listeners, Truckie Robbo. For those who missed it earlier in the podcast, here it is.
You got to be careful that you don't actually shoot yourself in the foot, because the way I read the law is that if you say you're unfit, that means you have to go and get a medical certificate to say you're fit to drive afterwards.
Belinda Hughes, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good point he makes. If you think about the case in Victoria where the 4 police officers were killed, it's well known that the particular driver that was involved did tell his work, "I'm not right to drive." He said, "I'm not well. I'm not okay to drive." Yet he was pressured to drive. So I do think there's a room for this new offence, but I think Rob's right in going, well, how is it going to be managed? How are companies going to manage this if a driver says, "I'm not okay to drive," and we all want that. We want drivers to be able to speak up and say they're not okay. But how then does a company or a director get assured that they are okay to drive? And I think Rob's right. They are going to be requiring a medical certificate saying you're fit to drive. And I think the NHBR are going to expect that for companies and operators to have some form of objective evidence that the driver then is okay to drive. Unless they're a salaried employee, Rob's right. I don't think they would be paid.
Yeah, he said this is where they shoot themselves in the foot. Let me just tell you this, if you do that, you're going to need a certificate. However, Rod Hannifey, your thoughts?
Well, mate, that's the other thing. There's a variance between I'm just not fit for the day and then, I'm sick, therefore, if you're, as you say, a salaried employee and you want to get sick pay, well, you've got to go and get a doctor's certificate for that. So it's one of those areas where I suppose until it goes to court, Belinda, or somebody makes a ruling that, yes, you can be unfit for the day, and do you have to list what those conditions are, as opposed to I'm unfit because I've been to the doctor and got a certificate, and then do you need a clearance afterwards? And that's just for something like that. And, of course, the concern I have is that if you work on a daily basis and you just have the one day off, blokes are more likely to step up and say, look, I can't do it today. For example, I was up all night with the baby, or I had a toothache, whatever it might be. But then what if that one day when you go to work is half your week's work, like I do? You go away and you do an interstate trip. So then, there's going to be more pressure. Geez, I can't really afford to give up half a week's wages as opposed to giving up a day. So when they bring it in, obviously the intent of the law is to improve safety and give drivers that capability of saying I'm not fit. But yes, because it's new, and then of course you take it to the next level. You take it to mental health. What happens there? How do you get if you say, geez, I'm not in the right mind space today, how do you prove you are tomorrow?
Belinda Hughes.
Yeah, look, the section does absolutely cover mental health, and my advice to operators in relation to this new offence is really they have to look at what they're doing for fatigue and expand it. They have to make sure that the driver is fit mentally to be driving. If there is a disclosure, the operator is going to have to find some way of having some objective evidence that they're okay to drive. Otherwise, they're putting their own selves at risk for prosecution. So it's going to be interesting, especially, where drivers are losing half a week's wage, whether they are going to disclose it or not, because of economic reasons.
Yeah, well, look, thank you so much for that. I hope that answers Rob's question. If you've got any more questions, please let us know, or leave us a voice message, 0291289311. Belinda Hughes, Hughes Law. You've had a good week. What's your win of the week?
Yeah, so this week we had a company before the court, and the company had 5 minor breaches and 1 severe breach. Now, the 5 minor breaches, most of your listeners would know, could be dealt with by way of a ticket. It's about $411. Over length, not a load, just a combination over 26 metres. One of these breaches was 6.5 centimetres, just to give you an idea of how minor it is. Now, the NHVR accepted there was no safety risk in relation to these offences, but somehow there was a roadside operational decision to, rather than issue an infringement notice, charge this company. So instead of receiving 5 infringement notices and 1 charge, these are all at different stops and intercepts, they just proceeded by way of charge. We were able to get them grouped all together and appear this week on sentence. The court heard that, this operator had tried their best, had an excellent safety record, no prior offences, and they were matters that could have been dealt with by way of infringement notice, but the regulator chose not to. Again, no criticism of the prosecution team here. They were facing $170,000 worth of penalties.
Wow.
Because the moment they take you to court, that infringement fine falls away effectively, and they're exposed to $20,000 as a maximum penalty for each of those offences. And then the severe was around $68,000. So the individual penalty is times 5 for a company. The director and his partner had lost many, many sleepless nights, very, very worried about this. And I can reassure them and say, look, the maximum penalty is not for you. You're not going to receive the maximum. You're not a repeat offender. This is not objectively serious. But that still weighs on them. But ultimately, the court gave them a total of $5,000 in fines. So they gave them a $411 fine for each of the matters, which was the same amount as the infringement notice. And then they gave them a $3,000 fine for the severe, which is about just less than 5% of the maximum penalty. We were able to show through affidavit and other material that the company had made steps to address this so that it wouldn't occur again, and the court accepted that. So they were absolutely ecstatic.
Wow.
Yeah, fantastic result for the company. But yeah, they still had to pay legal expenses, of course, but one does have to ask, why not issue an infringement notice? This was not a safety risk.
Rod, you've been saying this for a while.
Yes, so Belinda, what was the severe one? And again, once you're on the side of the road, it does depend on how you behave. In America, the police are instructed to approach you with respect. And of course, we know that if you launch out of the truck with a mouthful of abuse, you're normally going to pay for it in far bigger ways. So we have to get out and say, yes, good morning, mate. How's it going? What's the problem? And we don't know exactly what happened on those roadside things. So, what was the severe one? Considering you said one was 6.5 centimetres, and how ridiculous is that? You could get that measurement in the tape alone. And how do we then put that forward to the NHVR to say, why did this happen?
Yes, well, I try and do my best through LinkedIn, and I actually put this out there, and it's received a fair bit of commentary on why charge this company for these matters. It was all over length, and it was just by virtue of the combination of the vehicle and trailer. So it wasn't, as the act is really aimed at, being an over length load or protruding or anything like that. In relation to the roadside stop, there are different drivers, different locations. So it wasn't, the failure of the old school attitude test. It was really, they made a conscious decision that this company needed to be exposed to higher penalties at court instead of the infringement notice.
So, Luke, we have a very strict 26-metre rule, particularly in New South Wales. But if you put a different trailer, so not every trailer is the same, you put a different trailer in, or because a truck broke down, you put a different truck on the front, that truck might have a bull bar on it. So even when you measure from end to end, instead of it being 26 metres, as Belinda said, one was 26 metres plus 6 centimetres.
Yeah.
Like the length of your finger. So how many people are going to die because the trailer is that much over length? Now, the severe, obviously, they've gone and put a longer trailer in that's much longer than that. But again, there are rules for 30-metre combinations, and depending on where they are, it's not a safety risk, as she said. They accepted that. And yet, it could have been simply the bloke hooked up the wrong truck or the wrong trailer for some of the others. So, look, it's something where, particularly in New South Wales, they do push it pretty hard.
Yeah. All right. Look, Belinda Hughes Law, I'll let you get on and enjoy your daughter's netball game. Thank you so much again, Belinda Hughes, principal lawyer of Hughes Law. And as you can tell, folks, not only does she know her stuff, she will save you a lot of money, but she's dedicated and she understands the trucking industry and the transport industry across a wide range of transport law matters. Hughes Law. Belinda, thank you so much.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Rod. Have a good one.
All right, Rod. Well, we'll see you at the Casino Truck Show. I'm really looking forward to that. Another great Truckie Tuesday. Hopefully it's informative and educational and maybe a touch entertaining. The question I'll ask Belinda next time, Rod, is I wonder, these magistrates that hear these cases that can make or break an individual or a company, how well do the magistrates understand the trucking industry? Is that a fair question?
It's an absolutely fair question, mate. And, you could find one who got cut off by a truck on his way into work in the morning, so he's probably not going to be quite as amenable to a driver going in there and saying, Your Honour, I made a mistake and this is my excuse, as it were. So you don't know that. And then, of course, like most of the conversations we've had over the years, look, unless you've been in a truck, unless you've had family and you've spent some time in a truck, you won't see it from our point of view, whether you're involved in road safety or a magistrate or all of those things, unless they've sat in a truck and seen it from our point of view, when you go to court on something and say, Your Honour, this is what it's like, in our job, well, do they really care and understand? And Belinda said in our very first conversation, Luke, that she'd sort of put out this thing for the judges, the magistrates, to be a little bit more understanding, to have some awareness. But geez, whether we can get to them all and how you're treated on the day is like anything. But look, they are people just like us.
Yeah, well, you got to look at the law. That's the main thing. But how much leeway does a magistrate have if they understand the industry? That's another question which I'll ask Belinda next time we talk to her. Rod Hannifey, talk to you soon. Safe trucking, everyone. See you at Casino.
Looking forward to it, mate. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. We've enjoyed your company. Hopefully you've enjoyed ours. Please share. Please tell everyone about the Bonafide podcast. And I've got to tell you, at the wedding, somebody who was a little bit inebriated, the groom, came up to us and said, I love your podcast. I love you. I love you, Nikki. I love everyone. He was loving everyone. And he said, when are you going to get me on your podcast? I want to talk about men's mental health.
Oh, yeah.
Andreas, love you. I hope you wake up the next day feeling a little bit better.
Is that your thought of the day?
Oh, I've got a thought of the day.
Oh, yeah.
I was having an off-microphone recording with Shane Adam Bassett just today about another movie cinema that's come up for sale, and it's the one up in Noosa. We went there. We saw the movie. It starred Mel Gibson, and he played a radio talkback overnight host.
No idea.
Anyway. And it's up for sale. It's a whole complex, and more cinemas are hitting the deck, which is very sad. But we were thinking about some of the classic movies, and I was thinking, Kelsey, and this is an absolute fact. If you watch Jaws backwards, it's actually a really beautiful, heartwarming story about a shark who gives arms and legs back to people who need them.
Very good. Very good. Goodbye.
Well, that's it. A big, massive cheer for the folk at GME. Thank you for keeping the Aussie transport industry talking. It's engineered specifically to handle the bull dust, the corrugations, and the longest hauls you can throw at it. Head over to gme.net.au. That's gme.net.au. Links are in the description, and we'll see you next week.